He's worked his way past Christopher Mies. This is how we are at Spa now then, with an hour and 48 minutes of the race remaining. We started with 66 cars. We have got roundabout half still classified as being in the race. It's an Audi 1-2 as the Phoenix Run car takes on the Audi Sport Team WRT entry. 2 laps back, the Team Vita 41 BMW ahead of the Mark VDS Racing BMW. 5th, the AF Corsa Ferrari that heads the Pro-Am class ahead of the delayed Fassler Lotterer Christensen Audi that lost 20 minutes or so yesterday evening. That car is 6th ahead of the Haribo Racing Porsche. 7th, 8th is where Nicola Armindo is pressing on for Pro GT de Almera. 9th is the Sofrev Ferrari at the moment with Morgan Moulin Traffour behind the wheel, and 10th is 88 Alvaro Parent in the McLaren. Down in 13th is the Lamborghini, that with its gear shift problem, trying to fight back. The car at the moment in the hands of former race winner Jos Mentum. We've got just one car still circulating within the Cup class, and we've got the number 25 Porsche heading the Gentleman Trophy. A car that has run very effectively throughout the race, and he's into 19th place overall at the moment with that red ump behind the wheel. And you scroll through the order, and these cars that have long since departed the scene. The ARC Bratislava Porsche, for example, out with gearbox failure, to take one example. Another car that we lost many laps ago was the number 32 Porsche. That crashed out. The 70 Race Art BMW was another car that stopped by the side of the road. The Jaguar has gone with an electrical problem. So from a monster entry, half the field survives, and this is the car that leads the way. René Rast racing here rather than at the Hungaroring of the Porsche Super Cup, where there are 2 races on offer, but I think he has decided that a win in a Spa 24 Hours would be a good thing, and also embedding himself with Audi may be a good thing for the future, either for the DTM perhaps or for GT racing. It is Rast behind the wheel, and he turns his way out of Eau Rouge then, ahead of Christopher Mies, who is due to give way, I would think, shortly to Stefan Ortelli for the last stint of the race. Well, double stint, no doubt, to the end. But René Rast then making his way up now towards Les Cons. His last lap only a 10th quicker than the chasing Christopher Mies. The cars have been pretty evenly matched all the way through the race. The only real drama that we've had for number 1 has been a puncture and then Christopher Mies' spin. For number 16, a puncture at 9:10 this morning when Piccini was behind the wheel of the car. Out of the bus stop comes the Mark VDS BMW. Maxime Martin currently running in 4th place. Big frustration for the team because it was going so well yesterday evening, and then this whole catalogue of dramas this morning has come about, with the car having puncture, having been hit from behind, and also having been held for a long time at the red light in the pit lane. Let's join Haley Copson.
Bas, that's such a great start to the race. You were leading your class when we left last night, and then today you've had so many challenges along the way. What's been going on with the team?
Well, we had a lot of issues. One of it is that the engine won't start every time. We don't know exactly why. We found now a procedure that it will start, so that's quite good. But I got personally hit by at the back, lost half a lap. We lost some time with the safety car as well. We had a puncture. And then, yeah, with not starting the car, we lost 2.5 laps, which, yeah, would mean that we should have been still in contention for the lead. But at the moment, we're trying to chase 3rd place.
Could you possibly give a message to your Belgian fans?
Well, of course. I mean, we are very happy still to be in the race and to beat 30.
Flemish would be great.
Ja, nee, we zijn heel blij dat er heel veel fans zijn komen opdagen gisteren en vandaag. En dat zij ons steunen. Want het is een hele zware race. En het is tof om te zien dat heel veel mensen komen met patches van Mark VDS en een t-shirt van Mark VDS. En dat ze ons komen steunen. En als we in de paddock lopen, dan zeggen ze allemaal: goed gereden Bas, goed gereden Maxime en Marcus. En dat is echt heel tof. En dank u wel allemaal.
Thank you.
In the midst of which you'll have gathered there's lots of support for Mark VDS Racing. There is Mark van der Straten, man that owns the team, and still smiling even though a win is not, I fear, going to happen for them. Number 29 BMW was stopped on the circuit, the car that was started by Tom Coronel, the Roberto Ravaglia run BMW. So another car late in the race suffering problems, as there is now the leading cars separated by a lap. So René Rast, the wheel of number 16, there in fact is the BMW, having been dragged out of the way, going no further. But René Rast pulling away now from Christopher Mies. So the cars having been squabbling on track a little while ago. Then you factor in another pit stop. The gap widens markedly between the two. Over the timing line goes Maxime Martin there, running in 4th place, but a lap down on the similar car of last year's winner, Greg Franchi, now at Vita 4-1. And Greg Franchi looks as though he will bring the car home. Belgian driver on Belgian soil. And the surviving Team WRT Audi approaching the yellow flag zone because of the BMW that's just been moved out of harm's way. So Christopher Mies heads now up towards the bus stop. The second placed car about to complete its 469th lap, so it's the best part of a lap between them. Let's just see what the gap is going to be as they come over the timing line. Now Christopher Mies goes through, but already in the final sector of the lap is René Rast, so it's the best part of a lap between the cars. Let's say 2/3 of a lap between them in terms of track distance. It's going to be hard, I would have thought, for Team WRT to come back from that, but you never know. It was a big surprise this morning when we found the Phoenix run car, Ernst Moser's team, limping back to the pit lane when Puccini had the puncture. But equally, Christopher Mies hasn't helped because of that spin that he had a little while ago. The top two cars have done the same number of pit stops. And although it is leading, number 16 has spent more time in the pit lane. Most recently, they had a pad change, but also was held within the pits for quite some time. So that's not necessarily 49 minutes worth of work. It's the fact that it also suffered a bit of a delay in the most recent stop. But the car having had a puncture, number 16, number 1 likewise during the night. But even though this car has spent less time in the pits, it still finds itself in second place. And as the leader has gone across the line, only heading towards the halfway point on the lap, is number 1 Christopher Mies. But in turn, 2 laps clear he is of the 3rd place car of Greg Franchi, and in 4th Maxime Martin, who is another lap or 2 laps indeed back, and he's not going to pull that back unless this car suddenly has a problem. So through La Source turns Franchi. In the classes, 5th is where you now find the Pro-Am class leader, and it's Andrea Bertolini in the Ferrari, and Uwe Alsen has just pitted. That means that the number 8 Porsche is going to be caught in class by number 10 Ferrari, with Morgan Moulin-Treffort at the wheel. There is the Alsen Porsche. Looks like Uwe Alsen's going to stay behind the wheel of the car, which is good news because he's very fast and very spectacular. He wasn't much help to René Rast earlier on, in fact, after a safety car period, because he was getting in the way for a couple of laps, and Rast had to really work hard to find a way past a slower car. Alsen trying to drive his own race, but not being hugely cooperative. But in the end, Rast found a way by, and Uwe Alsen, like René Rast, a former Porsche Super Cup champion, makes his way then down from the F1 pits into the endurance pits, and there is 52 Andrea Bertolini then, class winner at Paul Ricard, and he's leading here with the class opposition now. Uwe Alsen second in the class, having just rejoined after that pit stop. The margin between them is 5 laps, so barring a disaster, this should be the car that wins the Pro-Am Cup for the 2nd race in a row. It's easy to think of the Spa 24-hour race as just a one-off. Far from it. It is part of the Blancpain Endurance Series that's been to a wet Monza, a wet Silverstone, a sunny Paul Ricard, a wet and dry, sunny and very showery and stormy Spa, and moves on next to the Nürburgring and then to Navarra. There's the class leading Ferrari, and you can see the standings behind because you've got number 8 Porsche that's just pitted in 2nd. 3rd in the class is the Ferrari run by the Sofrev team. 4th, number 34, which has now got Anthony Beltoise, a former Spa 24-hour winner, at the wheel of it. 5th in class, number 88, back in the hands of Alvaro Parent. And 6th in Pro-Am is number 20, Ludovic Badet, who has been a little bit anonymous in this race, possibly because there are so many other cars around. But he has just done the car's best lap of the race, and Ludovic Badet is running 6th in class and always is one to watch. Now there's the 2nd placed car within Pro-Am, Uwe Alsen in the Haribo Porsche. This is outlet, remember, powering his way downhill. And you're on board with Alsen, a former winner of this race, a former winner of the Nürburgring 24 hours as well. And it's the kind of circuit, the kind of event in which Uwe Alsen absolutely revels. Drops it down a gear, goes into Pouhon now. Now he is chasing in terms of an overall place at car number 6, which is Marcel Fassler. But Fassler is on the same lap as Andrea Bertolini, so the next battle to look for, I reckon, is going to be to see whether or not number 6, delayed yesterday afternoon in the accident with Adam Christodoulou, can catch number 52. They're on the same lap, and number 6 is lapping much, much quicker. And because of the number of laps between them, Uwe Alsen looks as though, at best, he's going to get 2nd in class. We're on board with Alsen. Traffic ahead. A very crowded road indeed. He's got the Viper ahead of him, the Gale Studio Gilles Vanderlei car. works his way past that. Now there's a BMW he needs to negotiate. Alton pressing on, foot to the floor as he makes his way up now towards the bus stop. And the BMW is number 4. 17th the car is now. Henri Moser at the wheel. Moser has turned out to be a very rapid driver in this car all season, but it seems to have been the BMW that's had the worst luck. It was the quickest car early on in the Silverstone round and then stopped out on the circuit with a fuel pump problem. Had dramas at Paul Ricard, it had dramas at Monza, which delayed it early on. So all the bad luck, or lots of bad luck, seems to go that car's way. And Uwe Alton trying to lap the BM, flashes the lights, comes up behind as they drop downhill. Now here is Andrea Bertolini leading his class over Alton by many a lap, but catching him is number 6, which is Marcel Fassler in the Audi. That could be a place change, but first let's catch up with other drivers of this car with Haley.
Alessandro currently leading the Pro-Am class. Is it good to be back here in Spa?
Yes, it's my third 24 hours, and now we're leading the race in our category. And we'll see, it's a long race. It's still 2 hours, and I cross the finger, and we'll see at the end.
The Ferrari is certainly looking competitive.
Yeah, yes, the Ferrari was a perfect car for 24 hours. It was incredible, and we don't say anymore, but I'm hoping well.
Thank you.
The leader is in, and a car that was going well, second in the class behind 52. You just heard from Alessandro Pierguidi early on in the race, 51. The car of Dan Brown, amongst others, that has just retired with a water leak. And so, driver change. So the last driver change of the race for number 16, the leading car. This, of course, is going to bring number 1 back into the mix. At the end of lap 472, in has come number 16, and also in the background, number 6. So that means that the margin is now going to widen between number 52, Andrea Bertolini, and number 6, Audi, that I was talking about a moment ago, because you've got the Audi now into the pit lane. So an hour and a half remains. 65 minutes is the maximum you can do. There's going to be at least one more stop for this car. And out on track, number 1, hustling on, reducing the margin, of course. So it is on the same lap as the car that is in the pit lane. And René Rast, having hopped out, watches the car blast away. There is number 6, which is also, I think, going to have a driver change. But number 1, Christopher Mies, coming then now down towards the bus stop. It looks as though 16 might actually hang on to the race lead here. I know it's a long drag down the pit lane, but there's still a big gap between the 2 cars. So coming out of the bus stop now is Christopher Mies. He comes across the timing line down towards La Source. There's traffic ahead of him as well. Going down the pit lane is number 16. And when it gets to the white line at the bottom of the endurance pits, it can then accelerate, work its way uphill and rejoin the circuit. And can it do so? Still in the lead. Looking marginal, in fact, now, because Christopher Mies is about to sweep through now and pick up the race lead. So, number 1 Audi leads the way. Frank Stippler accelerates back into the race. Interesting that it's gone back to Stippler rather than Andrea Piccini, that car. So we have had a change of lead. It is Christopher Mies there in the background who leads the way. And Frank Stippler, fresh into this stint, will go after him. But of course, it's not going to be that long before Mies has to pit again as well. The car's running out of sequence. So there goes number 1 into Lecombe. Back into the lead is Christopher Mies. And it's whoever stops last to lose, I fear. The lead trades between the 2 cars as one pit. So if you're the team that's going to make the final pit stop, then that potentially will lose you the race lead. Christopher Mies comes through Brazil now down the hill. More traffic ahead of him, including there the Alvaro Perant McLaren and the surviving Black Falcon Mercedes that drops down towards Pouan now. Flash of the lights from Christopher Mies. He lines up to make the move on the inside. And of course Frank Stippler pounding on behind. He's going to want to reduce this margin as well. Wants to be as close as he can before number 1 makes the pit stop. So there's number 1 working through the pit path. Christopher Mies back into the lead of the race. Real seesaw battle this between the 2 Audis. They're run by different teams. They might all be under the Audi umbrella, but Team WRT running this car, a Belgian team, and it is a team that would desperately love to win on home soil. Phoenix, the team that runs the car, the Frank Stippler that's chasing, very successful in the DTM, of course, and parachuted into running the cars this weekend within the Blancpain Endurance Series. But it's a championship regular Audi leading the way from one of the interlopers there in second spot, and number 6 back in the hands of Tom Christensen, continuing to pound on behind Andrea Bertolini. Down to the bus stop comes the leading car. Christopher Mies, who was the race winner at Paul Ricard. There is Frank Stippler. Back at the wheel of number 16, goes right, goes left, out of the bus stop. Over the timing line goes Mies, Stippler behind him, and the gap between those two is 6 seconds now. That's what it is, with 90 minutes or so to go, and 6 seconds covering the top two. We had a great battle earlier on where they were separated by just 0.6 of a second after something like 19 hours of racing. Well, now it's 6 seconds, but the way that Stippler has been going suggests that he's going to be able to bring down that gap. A very early flash of the headlights at the back markers to warn them of his progress. Stippler pounds uphill then through Eau Rouge and sets about trying to reduce that margin. So, as the cars climb the Kemmel Straight out of Raidillon, we'll see in a moment whether the sector time is good enough for Stippler to be closing. Now, of course, number 16 has made the extra stop, so it's done one more, but it won't be long before number 1 has to pit as well. You can see the cumulative time that cars have had, and look at that, well over an hour, of course, in the pits for number 6, the bulk of which was yesterday afternoon when they tried to repair the front left suspension. Stippler is really on it there, going wide up onto the curb. It's Stippler at the wheel. Andrea Piccini not behind the wheel because he was in the car earlier on, and indeed he's in the pit lane with Haley Coxon.
Andrea, can you tell us how many pit stops is expected now up until the end of the race for you guys?
I think the number of pit stops will be the same because both cars will need to stop again because of the driving time. Or at least that's what we expect. We hope, because otherwise the other car will have a big advantage. We will need to stop longer, they will need to stop shorter, but looks like we still have an advantage.
So 2 or 1?
Yeah, I think we will win if things keeps going like this. But still 2 hours to go. We have to take it easy. There's still a lot of things that can happen.
And 2 or 1 pit stop?
It's going to be 1 for us and 1 for them.
Thank you.
Bye.
So at least 1 more, but is there a possibility of a splash and dash towards the end? Well, there's a bit of a misnomer in the Blancpain Endurance Series. You can't really do a good old-fashioned splash and dash because you have to undo your belts in case of any fuel spillage fire, and you can leap out of the car. So even if you do try and make a splash and dash, you've still got to wait and do up your belts again before you can leave. And therefore you do lose some time, so it's not really a gamble it's worth taking. But Frank Stippler, as you can see, pressing on, riding the curbs, dive-bombing the traffic, and off the road again has gone the number 98 Audi. Jan Brunstedt had a spin in that car a couple of hours ago, and he's gone off again, and this time is a lot further away from the edge of the circuit. In fact, it's not Jan Brunstedt, it is Michael Bender at the wheel, and this time it was not even a solo effort, because in the midst of all of that, look, was 34 Anthony Beltoise, who's been delayed from 9th place, so the 2 cars going off together. And it is Michael Bender in number 98 that is off the road. That car, I have a horrible feeling, is not going any further because it is so far in the gravel, it's not going to drive out of there. Marshals might be able to give him a shove and get him back towards the circuit, but the Swede, with an hour and a half to go, off the road looking like he's out of the race. So Stippler, we know, is working his way through the traffic. At least 1 more pit stop for that car to make, at least 1 more for the leading number 1 to make. And now Christopher Mies is trapped for a moment behind the Ferrari there, look, coming down toward Bruxelles. The Ferrari gets out of the way. Number 42 Ferrari, that, run by the Sport Garage team. Romain Brandella, the fastest of the drivers in that car. And it's had a good, steady run, running in the Pro-Am class. And he's down in 30th place, but still going, which, given the carnage we've had for quite a lot of the teams, that's a result in itself. Now, we've still got the yellow flag out on track, of course, because of the Audi sitting in the gravel. And the Gentleman Trophy, which that car has been a factor, is being led by the number 25 Porsche, Bert Redant at the wheel of it, in 19th place overall. A really good, solid run. Even though the car has got no clutch, it's still going strongly. It makes pit stops a little bit of a drama, certainly leaving the stops, but when it runs well. Anthony Beltoise, despite his involvement in the incident with Michael Bender, is still going, and he is still running in 9th place overall, on the same lap as well as Morgan Moulin-Trafort. There, the man he's trying to chase. So this is the Ferrari that currently runs in 8th place, and pursuing him is number 34, the slightly delayed Anthony Beltoise. Tony Velander, number 51, out of the race. Great shame that car, having got itself into the lead of the Pro-Am class early on, a water leak putting it out of the race, which therefore deprives not just him, but the championship regulars, Dan Brown, Gaetano Ardagna and Giuseppe Ciro, a chance to have a good run. And disappointing for 51, then out of the race, 52, the class leader. Now, I'm getting all excited about pit stops up here, trying to work out when they might be due in next. Hayley, what more news have you got from the pit lane about Audi and pit stops then?
Yeah, hey Adders, they've just confirmed that they do believe car number 1 may have to make 2 pit stops, a splash and dash and a regular pit stop, but the other car, Andrea Piccini, who we've just spoke to, will only need to do 1. That is their prediction, the predictions at this current moment in time.
Okay, great. Well done, Hayley. Thanks for that. So possibly 2 stops for this car, number 1. Remember that Hayley talks about a splash and dash. In other words, just putting in a bit of fuel. But the dash element is not quite as it used to be because of this necessity to loosen the belts and therefore tighten them up before the driver is allowed to leave the pit lane. So it's not just as simple as remove the fuel churn and go. Still got a bit of time lost in having to do up the belts. Only a few seconds, but it all matters, particularly when the battle is this intense for the race lead. The gap between the cars is coming down because the last lap for Christopher Mies was a 2:26, Stippler a 2:22. The gap is 2.6 seconds. So on pace alone, Frank Stippler should get through. There's the graphic. You can see how the lead has been coming down and down and down over the last few laps. And there are the 2 cars together. Look at Stippler, absolutely on it, riding up onto the curb then. Extra motivation being offered to him because he can see the car that he's chasing directly ahead of him. There's no back markers. It's not miles around the circuit. He can see it directly. He's coming down now towards the right-hander at campus. And so number 16, Frank Stippler, chasing after the race leader, and he's doing it in great style. The gap is coming down and down and down. He was slightly slower in the first sector. He was a chunk quicker in the middle sector of the lap. And the cars are going to be together pretty much by the end of the next lap. Through Blanchimont comes Stippler. Look at all the rubber junked to one side of the road there. This is the part of the circuit where Philippe Salini, former sports prototype racer, had his big accident yesterday evening. It's also where we've had cars losing wheels, we've had cars spinning, but no such dramas for Frank Stippler, the former DTM racer, winner of this year's Nürburgring 24 Hours, makes his way up towards the timing line. One of his co-drivers in that race, Christopher Hasse, who of course is one of the drivers of the car that he's now chasing. And Frank Stippler, when he's not driving modern GT cars, races very successfully in historic sports cars and touring cars with Lucas Huni, and he turns his way out of the hairpin now. But he's putting all of his historic racing out of his mind for the moment because he is concentrating solely on catching this car. And Christopher Mies seems unable to respond. The gap dwindling all the while, and there's nothing that Mies can do seemingly to repel that now because Stippler is just reeling him in. Heading up towards Les Combes this time around. This is lap 477. An hour and 25 minutes of the race remain. There are the 2 Audis. The Team WRT car leads the way, goes right, goes left, then it'll be right again out of Les Combes. And in the first sector this time, indeed, Frank Stippler just fractionally slower. So Christopher Mies trying as best he can to respond to this. Of course, the team on the radio will be telling him of the situation and urging Christopher Mies to respond to this. He's not been helped by that spin a little while ago, but then it all balanced itself out when the number 16 Audi was held for a long time at the end of the pit lane under the safety car. Down towards Pouin they come. There is Stippler, lines up, swings the car through that long, long left, effectively a double apex left, and then the short straight down towards the Piff-Paff. Ahead on the road is Alvaro Parent, currently running in 10th place, but he's about to become 9th, in fact. Is Parent in the McLaren just going out of shot now because ahead of him on the road, Anthony Beltoise has pitted. So by the end of this lap, Parent should have gained a place overall and in class. That will put the car up into 4th in the category now. Uwe Alpsten, by the way, gave way to Christian Menzel on the last pit stop, so the number 8 Porsche still in quick hands and still running 2nd in class. The class leader, the Pro-Am class leader, Andrea Bertolini, currently in the pit lane. So Christopher Mies up front, but can he hang on in there? The fastest lap of the race done by Maxime Martin, a 2 minutes 19, and with Olivier Panis having brought number 10 Ferrari up into 8th place. High time we heard from the French F1 driver. Olivier is with Hayley.
Olivier, certainly great to have you here racing in the Blancpain Endurance Series. Have you been enjoying your time here at Spa?
Yeah, of course. We enjoy our time. It's very good. I mean, it's a fantastic race for sure. 24 hours in Spa is all the time beautiful. We perform quite well. We're fighting for a podium for Pro-Am. This is quite good also. And well, I mean, the GT3 is different with what I can do before, but to be honest, I'm very pleased to be here. It's a good organization. Everything going well for the moment.
It generally looks like a good weekend it has been for the team.
Yeah, it was a perfect weekend for the team. We know why we are here. We know we need to be calm down to finish the race. But when you are a driver, sometimes it's a bit painful, but this is the endurance anyway.
Thank you.
Well, that car runs 8th at the moment. Morgan Moulin-Trafford, the man behind the wheel of it. And it's the car that Fabien Barthez has been sharing. He has not been as quick as the others, it's fair to say, but a very good team effort, keeping that car in contention. And it's run reliably as well. I don't think it's had any real mechanical dramas race long. It may not be the fastest car in Pro-Am, but it has run reliably so far. And we've now got, what, an hour and 22 minutes of the race to go. There is the Sofrev car. The team run by Jérôme Policon himself, a very successful racer, very quick driver. And the race leader last time around, Christopher Mies, being caught again. Half a second slower he was than Frank Stippler. Back on track ahead of there, Morgan Moulin-Trafford, is the much delayed number 50 AF Corsa Ferrari that has spent quite a bit of time in its garage in the last few hours, but it's back on the track in 31st place. Belgian driver Enzo Ide at the wheel. And soon he's about to be negotiated by the charging Trafford. In the background, it looked like Michael Bender was getting the Audi going once again, number 98, having been off into the gravel. So he's lost a few laps, but the car looks like it's been dragged out of the gravel bed, and the indication has been given that he can drive back to the pit lane. So number 98 back into the race. Frank Stippler pounding on. How much closer has he got? In the first sector of the lap, he was slower. In the second sector, he was over a second faster. So Stippler now is almost there. The reason that a little bit of time has been lost, perhaps, by Christopher Mies is that he's had to get past Alvaro Perret. He's had to lap him. Up they come, into the bus stop. Stippler busy flashing the lights. That Von Ryan Racing McLaren has done a really good job in this. It may not be on the lead lap. It may have had a few delays in pit stops and in terms of different pace of drivers. Bearing in mind it's in the Pro-Am, not the Pro Cup like these two Audis are. But for it to have gone so well, reliability has been a bit of an issue for the McLarens this year. It's had a really good run. This is the Von Ryan racing car, Dave Ryan's team. And remember, it was here at Spa last year that we saw the McLarens debut in the Blancpain Endurance Series. 9/10 of a second is all that we have between the leading Audis. So Frank Stippler not there yet. I thought he would be up with him by now. It's going to be another lap, maybe two, before he is there. But he's hunting him down. And now look, Perret latching onto the back of the Audis. Interesting to gauge the pace of the McLaren relative to the pace of the leading two cars. Christian Menzel there coming towards us, about to be lapped, because behind him is the Mies-Stippler fight. And in the first sector of the lap, they are only 5 thousandths different in terms of their times. Christopher Mies is the slightly quicker of the two, but in real terms, Frank Stippler, of course, continues to be the real thorn in his side. Perret rides the curb. The McLaren running in 9th place. His next target is the number 10 Ferrari we were looking at a little while ago, but he's quite a long way behind that car, so it may not be a realistic chance, really, for him to gain another spot before the very end of the race, which is just an hour and 20 minutes away. That's the lead battle. Not quite nose to tail, but just about as good as. 9/10 of a second starting this lap. Christopher Mies, number 1, leads Frank Stippler in the Phoenix Racing number 16, red and white Audi behind. Christian Menzel in the Porsche will go a lap down in a moment as the two leaders work their way now into the pit path through the right, through the left, and then the run down towards campus, the educational building on the inside of the circuit. The cars work their way past it, then towards the right at the Paul Frere corner. And so Frank Stippler using more and more of the curb now as he tries to maximise the amount of room available to him, maintaining momentum, keeping the speed up all the time. They put a lap on the number 41 Gentleman Trophy Santilot Audi there that gets out of the way, and the leaders are now nose to tail as they come out of Blanchimont. Can Stippler make a move coming into the bus stop? This for the race lead at the end of lap 479. The two of them together out of Blanchimont they come. Porsche to get out of the way, possibly. Christian Menzel sees them coming. Stippler to the inside line, dived through on the inside, and he's done it. Great move. Frank Stippler takes over the lead, and Christopher Mies, I think, bailed out of that. Saw him coming and thought he's not really worth a fight, especially with an hour and 18 minutes to go. So you've got a change of lead. Frank Stippler is back ahead. He's come through ahead this time. Christopher Mies, though, does challenge on the inside line going into La Source. Thinks better of it, though. Frank Stippler hangs on to the advantage. Once ahead, though, can Stippler start to pull away? He has proved to be the quicker of the two drivers over the course of the race, really. And although Christopher Mies is still in touch at the moment, Can he stay there? Downhill they go. Stippler leads. Out of Eau Rouge, up through Radion. Christian Menzel still not been lapped, but he will be shortly. The way the balance of performance works out is that the cars are all pretty evenly matched, and therefore, even though he's a few laps down, it does take quite a long time to actually get onto the tail of that car and then think about lapping it. Christopher Mies has a look on the inside to get past Stippler, can't do it. 0.3 of a second was all that covered them when they came across the timing line at the start of this lap. Stippler now is trying to get away, but Christopher Mies riding the curve is pursuing him for all he's worth. You're on board now with Mies. Down through Bruxelles, through that right-hander, sawing away at the wheel. He's lost a little bit of ground there as Christopher Mies, but of course, for as long as Stippler is stuck behind the Porsche, then there's a chance he can get back up with the German driver. They go downhill, and Menzel hugs the inside line. Stippler will go through, yes he does, on the outside, and now with clear road ahead, he can start to pull away from number 1. Still looks, given that 16 is expected to have only one more pit stop, as though this is the stronger of the two cars. But it does depend on whether number 1 has to make 1 or 2. Mies, again, trapped behind a slower car now. Christian Menzel will know that he's there. He'll get out of the way in a moment. And so the Porsche moves to one side. Through goes the Audi up on the inside there, heading down towards the right-hander at Campus. But now look at Stippler getting away. He's worked his way into the lead of the race. In the first sector of the lap, he was doing his best, unsuccessfully, to get away because he had the Porsche ahead. But now in this middle sector, he's a second and a half quicker. He's pounding away from Christopher Mies in second place. The Audi mechanics watching all of this. In the pit lane there is the third place car, because although we've been concentrating on the Audis, a lap down is the Greg Franchi driven Vita 4.1 BMW, having new tyres put onto it. And this car could yet gain another place if anything else befalls the Audis. He's not that far behind. It's a shame it's not on the lead lap, but number 66 in the pit lane, in fact, will drop another lap now because the race leader has just gone past him as the BMW is in the pit lane. So the leading Audis on track have gone through, so this knocks the BMW down 2 laps adrift. Greg Franchi heads out of the pit lane once again, and there you can see, having returned to the pits, the number 98 Audi. Michael Bender has brought the car back in. Stippler out of Eau Rouge. Now the lead is building. 1.9 seconds it was last time. Frank Stippler now illustrating his ability, pulling away from Christopher Mies in second place. And although Christopher Mies does the full season of the Blancpain Endurance Series in these cars, Frank Stippler, with all of his years of experience of touring car racing, both in Sweden as well as in the DTM, and being a very successful Porsche racer, former Super Cup champion, now adapting very well to these Audi R8 LMS Ultras, the car new for this year. Better aero, better downforce, and therefore a quicker car. Back into the race goes 66. Greg Franchi brought the car in. It's Frank Kekkeler who takes it out, and therefore will bring it to the end. Greg Franchi, the winner of the Spa 24 Hours last year as an Audi driver. Had a bit of a disappointing season, really, in the BMW. It was very anonymous at Monza. It took pole position at Silverstone, but really struggled in the race there. Retired early at Paul Ricard. This, in terms of result, the best that we would have seen all year if it hangs on in there for third place from Vita 4.1. And you can see Kekkeler weaving around, trying to put a bit of warmth into the tyres. Comes up towards Les Combes. And of course, he's got to be absolutely flat out now for the remaining hour and 15 minutes to see if he can capitalise on any dramas that might yet befall Audi. You never know. The cars haven't totally been bulletproof. We've had that braking issue for number 1. We've had punctures for number 16 and for number 1. And also a bit of time lost 2 pit stops ago by number 16 when they had to do a pad change. Another question is whether number 1 Audi has made a pad change. I don't remember having seen it have the pad change, but I can't believe it's got this far without one. Downhill goes then Frank Kekkeler. He in turn is ahead of Maxime Martin, and because of that pit stop they're now on the same lap as one another. So Maxime Martin, within the first sector, is the best part of half a lap back now on the third place car. Now heading down towards La Source, there the Porsche you're looking at, number 25. This is the car that leads the Gentleman Trophy class, with the Belgian driver Bert Redin at the wheel of the car. Regular Porsche racer in things like Belcar and in the 24 Hours of Zolder, the Belgian Touring Car Series. And this car that he shares with Steve Van Bellingen and Armand Fumal did have an early stint or two driven by Johan van Loo, but he has become rather unwell, so has had to stand down from driving duties. So they've gone from 4 drivers down to 3. The car's got no clutch, but it's still going well, not just to lead its class, but to be 19th overall, which is an amazing effort. And there, look at Stippler, way wide over the curb, eager to get past the slower cars, using any part of the road that he can find. that might incur one of those track limit warnings. But Frank Stippler is absolutely determined now to build this lead over number 1, Christopher Mies. There's another slower car ahead of him in a moment to negotiate, the number 81 Alfa Audi, a car that regularly is to be found in the Swedish GT Championship. And bearing down on it is Frank Stippler, number 16, the race leader there, wide up onto the curbs. Look at this, round the outside, the Ferrari moves across, Stippler doesn't lift, he just keeps on coming, uses all of the runoff, and was pretty close to that tyre barrier, wasn't he, as he got back onto the road. The Gentleman Trophy leading Porsche making its way down now towards the left-hander at Port. And then second in that class is currently the Dodge Viper, the car that caught fire spectacularly in the last round at Paul Ricard, but Pierre Fontaine is the man behind the wheel of it. And third in the class, number 41, the Santilloc Audi, currently with Pierre Hershey driving it. That's a car that had a spin in the worst of the weather yesterday evening. You've seen the Gentleman Trophy class leader go through. The Viper is the car in second, it's Audi third, and then Audi fourth. There's the Viper in second spot, but 9 laps adrift of the class leading car. So the Viper, it's always good to have a Viper in a GT race. It looks great, sounds fantastic, but this car has also been through the walls in the night and has lost quite a bit of ground, but it's still going strongly now. Had a spin or two. Pierre Fontaine at the wheel, and comes now up towards the bus stop. Track to itself at the moment, in fact, the mighty Viper. Now that Vita 4-1 pit stop we just saw, by the way, to give way to Frank Kechler, still means there's going to have to be another pit stop, isn't it? Because 76 minutes of the race left, the maximum you can do in a stint is 65, so the car is due in the game. Number 34, the Porsche, remember, of Anthony Beltraz that we saw going off into the gravel, still sitting in the pit lane. That's the car third you're looking at in Gentleman Trophy. Pierre Hershey at the wheel now for Santilloc Racing, the French team that's gradually built its way up from Renault Clio Championships into GT cars and runs quick Audi. It's a shame it lost its Pro Cup class car with mechanical dramas in the night. And then, after being delayed mechanically, Felipe Albuquerque had a rather large off and put the car out of the race. But 41 keeps out of the way of all the quicker drivers. Experienced driver is Pierre Hershey. His son Jonathan has also been in the race, and he comes now towards the timing line as the AF Corsa Ferraris pound past the pits. The Mercedes effort in this race compared to last year has been disappointing because the cars have suffered mechanical dramas. They haven't really seemed to have the outright pace. You've just got a glimpse of the Black Falcon racing car going through La Source. There it is, being lapped. In the midst of all of this, you've got the Phoenix Racing Audi number 6. Now let's go back down to the pit lane and hear from Robert Hissam from the Gentleman Trophy. Robert is with Haley.
Robert, currently third fastest in your class. We've spoken Paul Ricard, and you were very much, you didn't think that there was too much competition, so you were very happy to finish on the podium, but you said it was quite easy to do that. Has it been easy here for the 24 hours with all this competition, new competition for you?
You know how easy it is. Nothing's easy in a 24-hour race, and we've had a lot of good cars. We've had the competition's grown on us. And doing 24-hour race, you've got to be really lucky, and I've got great teammates and a great team. So let's keep our fingers crossed. We've got another hour to go, and maybe we can pull it across and finish on the podium.
Have been having fun in the Audi?
Fantastic. It's a great car. It's great fun to drive, and yeah, really happy. Fantastic. I just keep it together.
Thank you.
The London-based American Robert Hissam, who came into European racing in the Venturi Challenge many years ago, and is exactly what the Gentleman Trophy is all about. An amateur racer who loves the circuits, loves the cars, and just wants to go racing and enjoy himself with no ego on show. And Robert Hissam then looking as though he will be on the podium, because here is Pierre Hershey at the wheel of the car at the moment, running third in class, and the number 41 Audi 25th overall with effectively now 70 minutes to go. Car certainly at a different pace from the Frank Stippler Audi, isn't it? But it's running to a completely different aim, and that is to get on the podium for the drivers, whereas Stippler is going all out to score victory. Into the pits comes Christopher Mies then, and he comes in with 68 minutes, call it 69 minutes to go, and a stint is 65, so they are going to have to do one more stop on top of this by the look of it. Going to be a driver change as well, so 69 minutes to go. Car 1 is in. there's one more stop for this to make. We're expecting one more out of number 16. So 16 will pit first and give the lead potentially to number 1. Number 1 pits, the lead goes back to 16. So I still think the Stippler car is the one that is going to win the race. So new tyres go on. Car number 1 losing touch for the moment, at least, with the race leader. 9 seconds was the gap, but that was coming into the pit lane. It'll be much, much bigger, of course, after this pit stop. Pit stop, given the way that the pit lane works in relation to the timing line, happening on the next lap, effectively. So new tyres go on. Back into the race it goes, and down towards the hairpin. Vincent Vos there leading the applause. So can it go the end on just that pit stop? Not convinced, but we will see. The Cup class has rather been decimated here because you've got just one car left, and it's number 94. The car being driven at the moment by Kevin Balthazar, but it's on for a class win, this Porsche. Frank Stippler working his way now out of the bus stop. He's got the class-leading Porsche behind him. Now Stippler's pace, of course, meaning that the advantage is going to be a greater one over Stefan Ortelli this time around because of the pit stop for number 1. Stippler lapping in the 223s, still trying to build up this lead. The car having to make one more stop. And the question mark is over number 1, whether it can go to the end now, or whether or not that is expected to make another stop as well. Down through Eau Rouge comes the number 16 Audi. So climbing uphill, Stippler at the wheel. Now Ortelli at the end of not this lap that he's on, but the next one, will be able to indicate a proper pace in that car. And then we can work out whether or not he's going to be able to catch it or not, because Frank Stippler, we know, has been very, very fast in this car all weekend. And some of the gap will be taken away once we get to the pit stop. But even so, if number 16 can hang on to the advantage when it rejoins, it's going to be a very good result indeed for that car. It's not going to be that easy, that's for sure. I still think that number 1 has to make another stop. Having come in with 69 minutes to go and the stint being 65. So it does suggest there's going to have to be this, if you like, mini pit stop. The pseudo splash and dash right at the very end, whereas this car will have to make one more as well. But Frank Stippler now trying to build this lead and try to preserve that then after the next stop. This car not really a factor as far as the championship is concerned. Doing its only round of the series, but as there you can see going very, very wide, Stefan Ortelli, he too is pushing on. Now if we were to get a safety car in this last period, that would be the get out of jail free card for number 1, because if there's a safety car, the driving stint is extended to 70 minutes, and that would just about work for number 1, wouldn't it? But if we don't get a safety car, I still think that they're going to have to pit with 4 minutes to go before the very end. So there's a stop due for 16, which is a kind of routine stop, but there's another pit stop because a maximum stint is 65 minutes for number 1. Now that car you're looking at, 52, Louis Machiel's back behind the wheel, is leading the Pro-Am class, and by quite some margin now, because that is 5 laps ahead of the Haribo Porsche. The car currently being driven by Christian Menzel, but that's dropped quite a long way down now relative to 52. Coming out of Bruxelles is the Ferrari, and earlier on we were talking about number 6 Audi catching. Tom Christensen was hunting down 52, but there is still quite a big gap between them. Again, it's the best part of half a lap between those two cars. So through Pouhon goes 52 Ferrari, the class-winning car from Paul Ricard, and AF Corsa with a very busy programme here, a whole heap of cars to run. Some have had dramas, some have managed to go trouble-free, but Stefan Ortelli in second place is lapping quicker in the sectors than is Frank Stippler, and both cars have got to make another pit stop. Up to the Paul Frere corner goes 52. The Ferrari 458, 4.5 litre engine, 8-cylinder car, powering its way now towards Blanchimont. And the 458s that came into racing in GT3 last year, glorious shape, and successful in GT3 and GT1 this year as well, and of course within the World Endurance Championship in class for GT cars. But towards the bus stop comes Louis Machiels. It was last year that he had all his dramas with the radio not working and not knowing about a stop-go penalty and then being excluded. No such problems this year. A class win beckons, as here is the charging Stefan Ortelli, who was quicker within the first sector. Now the lap time of Frank Stippler has been a 2 minutes 22. Stefan Ortelli, on a heavier fuel load, of course, new into the stint, comes over the line and does a 2:21. He's lapping quicker. So Stefan Ortelli knows that he's got to be on his toes here. The pressure is on. Can he take a second Spa 24-hour win? He won it for Porsche in 03, and Stefan Ortelli straight away is doing what is required of him. Frank Stippler has been mighty impressive, but now Ortelli being even more so because he's lapping quicker. Frank Kekler, by the way, is also lapping in the 2:21s, but he is a couple of laps back in third place, but he might luck into another place if one of the Audis hits trouble, and the way they're pushing each other now suggests that this intense battle might just claim somebody, you never know. The Blancpain rider Lamborghini there, Mark Hayek, about to be lapped. 72 has pitted. That car delayed early in the race with a puncture. And the Kessel Racing team going to work to get Mark Rostan back into the race. Stefan Ortelli through the first sector, quicker by 0.6 of a second. He is hunting down Frank Stippler. Granted, the gap is a large one because it takes into account the pit stop, but Ortelli is reducing it all the time. Just over an hour to go. He's got to make another stop. The maximum you can do in a stint under green flag conditions is 65 minutes. So Stefan Ortelli, if we don't get a safety car, will have to come in again. He turns his way downhill, hard at the wheel, working away. Now down towards the Piff Paff. Hunting down Frank Stippler, closing up all the time. Former Le Mans 24-hour winner, of course, Stefan Ortelli, as well as winning the Spa 24 Hours. Porsche Super Cup champion and GT champion within the FIA GT Championship. And vastly experienced driver, hugely successful as well, and now picking his way through traffic, being careful of the slower cars as well as storming on to try and catch the race leader. Fantastic sound the Audi makes. You're riding with Stefan Ortelli now with a clear road ahead of him, absolutely flying. The last lap for Frank Stippler was a 2 minutes 23. Ortelli is about to make his way up over the line. He comes out of the bus stop, really fighting the car there. Through the right, through the left, and there is Stippler. He's, what, 2/3 of a lap ahead, I suppose, because he's coming up towards Blanchimont. Stefan Ortelli going down towards La Source now. So you can see what a pit stop loses you in terms of pace against the leader. And we've got the leading car then now making its way over a couple of minutes clear down towards the bus stop. So let's look back as we get into this last hour of the race on how it all began with the battle between the BMWs. Maxime Martin taking on Frank Kekler off the line and moving around the outside to grab the advantage, heading out of Eau Rouge and going up through Raidillon. A BMW 1-2, McLaren 3rd and 4th, and then for 5th it was a battle between Audi and Lamborghini. André Lotterer was trying to make ground early on in the race, succeeded in taking a place at La Source, but it wouldn't be long before the number 6 Audi was in trouble. The Porsche battle lower down the order was between two different class cars, the Gentleman Trophy 911 versus the Cup class older spec Porsche. And for the Cup class drivers, the necessity to keep out of the way of the faster cars all important. A much faster Porsche, though, was that of Uwe Alton as he was battling with Peter Cox. And Matt Griffin busy keeping other Ferraris at bay despite the broken bonnet catch. Xavier Marcin's Porsche gaining a place off Olivier Pla, being a brave effort on the inside going into Les Combes. Frank Kekler did his best in the early part of the race to stay with Maxime Martin. Martin, though, just being so fast. And Jochen Habert's tried to move against Koen Vances that didn't work. And that spat the Mercedes off the road and into the gravel. Adam Christodoulou, a late decision to go for the pit lane, moved across the circuit, aimed for a gap between what he thought was the Mercedes and a larger gap between the Audi, and made contact with André Lotterer. The McLaren ending up in the Armco and doing lots of damage to the suspension. Damage also to the front left of Lotterer's Audi. Frank Kettler then came across more battling back markers, and when Lawrence Frey's Jaguar was tipped into a spin, Kettler just able to nip up the inside and get out of the way. Christopher Mies in the number 1 Audi getting faster and faster as the race wore on. Uwe Alpsten being ever more dramatic, weaving his way past back markers and gaining a place overall from Edward Sandstrom on the run up towards Les Combes. Sandstrom had to lap Kenneth Hire. He did so coming into the bus stop, but then locked up and ran a bit wide, giving the place on track back to Hire. And when he came out of the bus stop, he had the McLaren of Eric van der Poel right up behind him. Peter Belshaw tagged into a spin by Maxime Soulet, but on track, Frank Stippler, after a gentle start to the race, was now becoming more of a threat. He was catching the battle between Edward Sandstrom and Stéphane Lemeray and made his move coming out of Raidillon. He was ahead by the time they got to Les Combes. He got past a pair of them in one easy move. The McLaren fight between Eric van der Poel and Alvaro Perret very nearly came unstuck. Perret had to give way to the 5-time Spa 24-hour winner, but then he made his move going into the pith path and worked the Von Ryan racing car up ahead of the Boutsen Energy racing machine. Trouble for 33. To the pit lane came Eric Dermont, the back of the car ablaze, oil being dropped on the circuit, and that was hit by Van der Poel and Cox, who then had a spin. And the flaming Porsche had to be extinguished in the pit road. Not long after, the heavens opened, down came the rain, and off went Julian Draper. Off went Phil Quaife. Out came the yellow flags, and out came the safety car. It was the best part of an hour that it had to splash round for, and the reason was clear to see. Not just cars in awkward places stranded on the track, but also the amount of standing water. Eventually, after the Audi mechanics had gone for a swim, the rain did relent, things brightened up a little bit, and it was back to racing. The battle for honours between Maxime Martin and Bas Linders sharing the BMW to this point. Marcus Paltela only driving after the 12-hour mark, and the number 1 Audi of Mies, Hasse and Ortelli. But René Rast, running third, was in hot pursuit. The number 3 BMW came into the pits, leading at the 6-hour mark and therefore taking points in the championship, as the number 1 Audi continued to try to bring down the gap. And the gap was reducing. A good stint by Ortelli, a good stint by Christopher Hasse, putting them into contention. The BMW still led the way, however. And then Philippe Salami had this big moment, turning out of Blanchimont, the Porsche smashing into the concrete wall, the car out of the race, and Philippe Salami heading to hospital for observation. In the darkness, into the bus stop, Christopher Hasse on the inside, making his move for the race lead, and he found a way past the BMW of Bas Linders to put number 1 Audi ahead. The rain intensified, the safety car was back out again, there was more standing water, there were more puddles, and the pace of the race slowed as a consequence. When the race was restarted again on a very slippery track, visibility was limited, and so too was traction. For the drivers trying to gain places, it was a case of going offline, where it was even more slippery and visibility reduced anyway because of the darkness and the spray. The fireworks helped a little, but not much, as Frank Kettler discovered when he tried to get past the United Autosports Audi and contact was made. He was fortunate, so too was Maxime Martin, who came across Mike Wainwright's McLaren, and Wainwright misjudged where the corner was, turned across onto the grass ahead of Martin. Maxime survived, Wainwright had a spin, and his car would crash out of the race in the night. A crash eliminated Klaus Hummel and Nico Verdonk at La Source. Verdonk was leading the Pro-Am class, but was harpooned by Hummel, both of them out of the race on the spot. On track, the number 16 Audi of Stippler, Piccini and Rast became ever more of a factor for the race lead. It was getting into that mix against the number 3 BMW and the number 1 Audi, but it was still car 3 that led the way. The fans started to drift away from the track to enjoy the concerts that are part of the appeal of the Spa 24 Hours weekend. And at 4:37 this morning, into the pit lane to serve his stop-go penalty was Marcus Paltela. Inevitably, that cost the car some time, more time lost with delays in pit stops, safety cars, punctures and being hit from behind as well. Andrea Piccini had to serve a pit stop for a punctured tyre. That cost the 16 Audi some time. It lost it the lead as well to number 1. Damien Dupont's Aston Martin lost a wheel. That was clipped by Fred Bouvy in the Pro Speed Porsche, which did a bit of damage to the front left corner of number 74. Hans-Guido Riegel had this big moment coming through the bus stop. He was able to hang on to the Porsche, but his pace was costing the car a place or two. And the number 3 BMW reluctant to restart after pit stops. A clutch problem is what the team suspects. With a loose left rear wheel, Daniel Zampieri slid off the road at Les Combes. The wheel eventually joined the rest of the car, and an electrical problem for the Blancpain Lamborghini, causing problems for the gear shift, delaying number 24 in the pit lane as well. That car dropping down the order. Tom Christensen got rid of the interior mirror that had come loose, and when a safety car peeled back into the pit lane and the battle for the lead continued, it was the number 1 Audi only just ahead of 16. Frank Stippler right on the tail as the two cars worked their way up towards Les Combes. And once again, Stippler being excellent in traffic. The Nürburgring 24 Hours winner making a move on Hasse. Christopher Mies would be next into number 1, but before that, Hasse had this little moment going up towards Les Combes. It was a brake issue, said the team, that caused the car to drift up onto the curb and then almost get away from him. That meant that the gap extended between the two, but Stippler once ahead had that slide coming out of La Source. Maxime Martin tried to unlap himself from the race leader. He did so eventually, but he couldn't understand why Stippler just hadn't let him by. Jan Brunstedt had a spin in the Gentleman Trophy class Audi, and Marc VDS was awoken from its slumbers as the cameras arrived to focus on a yawning Twan Hezemans. Keen to see how the number 4 car was doing, the one his son was behind the wheel of. Christopher Mies spun coming out of the bus stop. He dropped a lap as he recovered. Drama for number 2 when it went into the garage. It rejoined and had even bigger problems 2 laps later when Edward Sandstrom clipped the curb at Eau Rouge. It was a huge hit into the wall. Front and rear damage, the car crash landing back on terra firma. Sandstrom okay, the car very definitely not. The tyre barrier suffered, there was debris on the road, and again the safety car came out. The 15th deployment of the safety car in the race. Number 2 was out, a pad change for number 16. It was a good quick stop, but then the car was held for quite a long time at the end of the pit lane, and the lead continued to be traded, not just between 16 but also number 1. And you had the car of Christopher Mies then losing out as Pro-Am class honours were going the way of 52, the AF Corsa Ferrari. In 3rd place, number 66 BMW, going strongly in the hands of Frank Keckler. And the lead battle continues to go back and forth. At the moment, with this move, it is Frank Stippler ahead. In the pit lane is car 8. Christian Menzel has brought in the Haribo Porsche, and we've got 50 minutes of the race to go now, that's all. Porsche about to rejoin as it goes down the pit lane. There is number 1 Audi, which is expected to have to make another stop, as also is number 16. And last time around, Stefano Ortelli lapped faster again, so the gap continues to come down between the top 2. Stefano Ortelli giving it everything he has got now. There's the car that's 4th, Maxime Martin at the wheel. Even though Marcus Paltela was kept out of the car until 12 hours had been done, he still doesn't seem to have done a huge amount of driving. Maxime Martin, who is very much the fastest driver of that car, used as much as is possible under the regulations. He has done the best lap of the race as well, 2:19.7, which is only a few tenths off a qualifying pole position type lap. And as far as things are concerned at the moment, the quickest man on track is Frank Keckler, lapping in the 2:21s. Then you've got Martin and Ortelli lapping in the 2:22s. This is the leading car. Frank Stippler's last lap was a 2:26. He occasionally does this. He has these sort of slow-ish laps, but he's then able to respond. Stippler is going to be coming towards the end of a stint, I would have thought, pretty soon. So maybe these tyres are getting a little bit weary. See what he can do in the sectors. Last time the first sector was a slow one compared to Ortelli. There is Stippler, 41 in the first sector. That's a second quicker than the previous lap, so he's responding. He works very, very hard when he's behind, really fights his way into the lead, but then having got there, the lap times drop away just a little bit. Comes down towards Bruxelles. Stefano Ortelli in the meantime, chasing. He is quicker again in the first sector of the lap. The gap between them we don't yet have, because Ortelli hasn't come across the timing line as yet to complete his 491st lap, but there is on lap 492 Frank Stippler. They're on the same lap, albeit a long way apart. Stippler comes through Pouhon, the gap continues to come down and down. So the leading Audi, run by Ernst Moser's Phoenix team, with a good pedigree in the DTM, but also racing in the Spa 24 Hours and the Nürburgring 24 Hours as well. one of the key Audi customer teams, turning its way then now to the Piff Paff once more. As you see, number 3 in the pit lane, Maxime Martin. Now, is this going to be just for fuel, or are they going to have to put new tyres on that car? BMW is going to rejoin in a moment. Fingers crossed. Seems to take for ages to get the fuel in, doesn't it? And 2-part pit stops, so you can't do anything else other than change driver while the fuel goes in. If Maxime Martin's staying behind the wheel, there's no need to worry about that. They don't change tyres, so the BMW now blasts back into the race. Goes past the number 98 Audi after its trip into the gravel. Michael Bender having brought the car back in. Now there is Stefan Ortelli, who was fractionally faster in the first sector of this lap. He's going to gain ground back again, of course, on the next pit stop for number 16, but this car we still think has to make another pit stop under the regulations right at the very end, so anything he claws back will be lost unless Stefan Ortelli continues to put in better lap times than Frank Stippler, and last time he was nearly 2 seconds quicker, so he is doing so. Stefan Ortelli is in a qualifying session now. He's got to be in order to get anywhere near a chance of a win. He's won the event before. Goes down through Pouin, through that long left. In sector 1 on this lap, he was actually slightly slower. So Ortelli with a clear road ahead of him now, hunting down the leader. Edward Sandstrom we lost early on in the race after his big accident at Eau Rouge, and thankfully Edward is okay. The car very badly damaged, but let's find out what happened. He's with Haley.
Edward, it's certainly great to see you back here and all is okay. Can you tell us what actually happened on track?
I think I had a little bit of problems in the pit with the seat belts. It was not correctly mounted, and I think I got a bit unconcentrated at this time of this race. Yeah, it's quite difficult to not be a little bit tired, and I got a bit frustrated. So
just going to replay it here for you.
I think I go down to Eau Rouge, and I think I'm trying a bit too much too early with new tires. I go quite sharp in, and when I see now I hit the inside curb too hard, and it unsettles the cars quite heavily, and yeah, you can see I have a very heavy impact with the tire wall, and for sure you don't want to be in the car at that moment, but happily enough the Audi was very safe and the seat and everything worked really good, so that's the only good case with this situation, so but I'm happy for that.
Thank you, Edward.
So the good news is Edward Sandstrom is okay. And we've got the safety car again. That's a Ferrari that is off. So this is the 16th safety car period of the race. Which Ferrari is it that we have lost? It looks like a Kessel Racing car. Let's try and identify it. It's a big moment for it. Is that a puncture or another wheel that's come off? But either way, that is a monster accident. Backwards into the tyres. The car rolls, ends the right way up. But that is a huge accident at a very fast part of the circuit. Tyre barrier is destroyed, and the car, having hit that, bounces upside down back onto all fours. But was it a punctured tyre that sent the car off, or had a wheel parted company? Need to have another look at that. We've had quite a few cars losing wheels in the last few hours of the race. Now we've got into the pit lane number 16, and so this will be the last pit stop now for number 16. With 44 minutes to go, it can go to the end here. So with the 16th safety car, number 16 makes its pit stop at the end of lap 493. Equally, number 1, of course, could do its pit stop now and still be able to close under the safety car. So fuel, tyres, here is Ortelli. He's reducing the gap, but this car also would need to make another pit stop. The 5 minute extra time is only if the safety car is on track at the end of your stint, not during it, not early on in it. So the field's slowing down, of course, coming into the incident zone now. But number 1, potentially to get the lead of the race here, depending on whether or not number 16 is going to be allowed out or having to be held until the queue of cars has gone through. The car that is off is 72. It is the Kessel Ferrari, and Lorenzo Bontempelli at the wheel of it. That was the car that had a punctured tyre earlier on, but that was a big accident, and Bontempelli off at Blanchimont. tyre barriers, of course, put there to try and cushion the impact, but it does have the effect of bouncing you upside down if you're not careful. Now there, into the pit lane comes Stefano Ortelli. I think that was a late decision. Didn't look as though that was necessarily what was in the game plan, but they're going to get this stop out of the way now, but quite sure that's the intention. A stint is 65 minutes. Even if he does this pit stop now, there is still the necessity to do another one, surely, because he will have to drive for more than 65 minutes. Into the pit lane comes Ortelli, so they're going to refuel it. But this might need a bit more investigation. It could be an interpretation of the regulations, but as I say, that 5 minutes grace to give you a 70-minute stint is if the safety car is on track at the end of your stint. This is not the end of Stefano Ortelli's stint, it's midway through. Goes back out. So the team content with that. Now this is how Stefano Ortelli decided to come in. Was it a plan or was it a bit of a gamble? Let's see. Turns his way into the bus stop and then turns in and suddenly almost does a U-turn. Now if Adam Christodoulou can get excluded from the race for an unsafe pit lane entry, people might want to have a look at that one, because that was very strange. Granted, Stefano Ortelli didn't take anybody with him, but that was a very odd way of coming into the pit lane. So car 72 off at turn 17, and as the driver has attended to, this could be a long safety car period. Frank Stippler has kept the lead. Stefano Ortelli will be behind now, but how much longer are we going to have the safety car out for? Here, a replay, the driver getting out of the car, so Lorenzo Bontempelli okay, which is good news indeed. You can see the tar stack that he's demolished in the background, and the car having flipped upside down, back onto all fours. It's how he got there that I'm intrigued to have another look at. Number one is being held at the red light, and the car not going anywhere. Now Frank Stippler is at the moment in the middle sector of the lap. It is possible that the car could, number one this is, go a lap down here, depending on when it is released, and that would really go against that team. Frank Keckler then making his way here behind the safety car down towards the bus stop, and there's a whole queue of people waiting to go out, and the lights are still red, so until the officials give the word, all those cars have got to stay there. We've got 41 minutes of the race to go. Here's the replay. Let's have a look. The car seems to be sitting down on the right rear corner, like a tyre may have gone down. Spins around, hits the tyres, and that just acts as a ramp into the air. Over it goes. That is a huge accident. Lorenzo Bontempelli lucky to hop out of that, but that really was a big, big drama for him. And he will get out of the car, but certainly the car out of the race, and it'll be a rather sore Lorenzo Bontempelli tomorrow morning, that's for sure. But the good news is that he's okay. And actually looking at the car as it landed, it's stood up to that accident very well indeed. So concerned faces still at Team WRT, because Stefano Ortelli is still in the pit lane and Frank Stippler is in the next queue of cars to come over the timing line. So when this train has gone past the line in the pit lane, the instruction should be given to release them. So Stefano Ortelli in number one, been sitting there for ages, and even when he's released he's going to be in traffic. The green light is on, so everybody can now get away. The Audi is what? Fourth in the queue, I think, as the cars get away now. And he will join, going up through Radion, as the leading car goes to La Source. So there is almost a lap between them, and of course Ortelli can't overtake yet either. He's going to have to sit in traffic. So that really does now give the number 16 Audi Sport Performance team a race that is theirs to lose. They've made the last pit stop, and so now number 16 is the best part of a lap ahead. It looks as though it's going to be a win for the Frank Stippler, Andrea Piccini and René Rast driven Audi. Safety car, you can see, has picked up the Lamborghini. Number 24 Mark Hayek at the wheel of the car, currently running in 11th place overall. Into the top 10 has gone number 20 Ludovic Badet, I talked about earlier, in the sense that he's been a bit anonymous in this race, normally draws attention to himself, but he has now got number 20, the soft rev Ferrari, into the top 10. Race order in terms of who's behind the wheel: Frank Stippler leading, Stefan Ortelli second, third is Frank Kekler, fourth is Maxime Martin, fifth is Louis Machiels heading Pro-Am, sixth now Tom Christensen, seventh is Christian Menzel, eighth is number 10, shown as being back in Olivier Panis's hands, ninth Alvaro Parent, 10th Ludovic Badet, 11th is Mark Hayek, 12th number 17. Now the Ferrari in the hands of Martin Jensen has had a very solid anonymous run, but is there in the top 12, which is good. 13th is Paul van Splunteren, 14th, and still in the pit lane, Anthony Beltoise. This car dropping further and further down after its moment with the Audi in the gravel a little while ago. And in 15th place now is the number 30 Aaron Scott driven Audi that's had a couple of spins early on in the day. So we've got the cars on lap 495 and headed by number 16. Frank Stippler at the wheel of the car, trying to weave around and just keep some warmth in the tyres. There is the Audi, second in the second batch. There's Tom Christensen's car, operated by the same team, currently running in 6th place. And of course the safety car stays out for as long as the race director needs. 37 more minutes of the race to go. I can't believe we're going to end the race under the safety car. It shouldn't take that long to hopefully get this Ferrari out of the way. The good news is that the driver is okay. Lorenzo Bontempelli, we saw getting out of the Ferrari, but the race director wants to make sure that the car is off the track and also that the tyre barrier has been repaired as well. So the field sedately making its way out of Pouhon, and the race-leading car out of Frank Stippler. I think the only real drama it's had has been a puncture this morning. Other than that, it has gone so well for the team this race. That's 52. That's the car that leads Pro-Am Louis Machiels at the wheel, and with lots of tank tape all over it. Number 6, Tom Christensen at the wheel in 6th position. They've done very well, that squad, to get the car back up there, but it could have been a whole lot better. Now let's find out more about number 1, Team WRT. Let's go to Haley in the pits and team manager Pierre Dieudonné.
Pierre, if you just watched the monitor, we're just going to show you Stefan's entrance into the pit lane and see what your view is, whether you feel it was legal or not.
Let's say that from where I stand, I didn't have a good view on it.
What are your thoughts on that?
It was a last-minute dip into the pit lane, yes.
Thank you.
Well, whether the stewards have a look at that, we'll wait and find out. There's no message yet for anybody from that team to go and see the race officials, but the car did pit. It has rejoined, but it is still a long way behind Frank Stippler. So sometimes under the safety car you can gain, of course catch up, but I think Stefan Ortelli has lost out there. So by making that pit stop, they effectively can break up the stint into 2 different length stints. So they've got the last stop out of the way. If you take the, what do they have, 69 minutes or so before the end of the race, and do 1 short stint, pit stop, another short stint, that gets you around the 65-minute problem. So car number 1, I think, is going to be okay with that, rather than having to do 65 minutes in 1 stint and then a stop before the end. They can break it up the way they have done it. So the way they've interpreted the regulations is okay. The safety car is going to be in at the end of this lap, and so for 34 minutes Frank Stippler leads Stefan Ortelli. Can Stefan Ortelli come back at him? The margin between them is the best part of a lap, and I can't, unless 16 has a problem, I can't see Stefan Ortelli being able to do it, because the cars are so evenly matched. Stefan Ortelli is going to struggle to bring this gap down sufficiently. Now, more news from the pit lane, I think, because as we get ready for the restart, Haley has been busy finding out more news. Haley, what have you got?
Hey, yeah, just an update on the Kessel Ferrari of Lorenzo Bontempelli. I've spoke to the team. They said they have confirmed with him that he is okay, but nobody is willing to speak to me right now. I can't get an interview, but they are confirming he is okay.
That's good news. Thanks, Hayley, for that, because it was a big, big hit, and that's for sure. As you saw the car hit the tyres and get launched into the air. I still maintain that car's got a puncture as it goes off, as the car sits down on one side, and over it goes into the tyres, bounces down. That's a really heavy impact upside down, but the car, as I said earlier, stood up to that remarkably well. Lorenzo Bontempelli quickly out of it, but the puff of smoke from the left rear corner as it went off the road, suggesting that either something broke or a tyre went down. So the safety car is going to be in this time, and the best part of a lap lead now, Stippler over Ortelli. So they gambled under the safety car, did Team WRT, but it didn't pay off. And so behind, Frank Keckler is a lap adrift. It looks as though Frank Stippler now just has to maintain a decent rhythm for another 32 minutes and get the cars to the end of the race. So we'll go racing again this time around. This is lap 496, and for Stippler, Puccini and Rast, the win is there for the taking. Now, is there a sting in the tail to this race? It has happened before, that in the last few laps, suddenly teams have problems. Remember how BMW lost the race 2 years ago when the leading car had a suspension problem and went off the road with something like 40 minutes to go and gave victory to Porsche. Is there going to be something lurking in the plot for this race that's yet to come to light? Safety car for the pit lane, and so Mark Hayek leading this gaggle of cars, pursued by Christian Menzel through the bus stop, and the race is live once again now as the cars power past the pits. You're on board with Mark Hayek, checks his mirror to see what's behind him, and Christian Menzel goes through there, look, on the inside line in the Haribo Porsche. Also in a hurry, Maxime Martin trying to gain ground if he can. Then goes Frank Keckler through La Source. So with just over half an hour of the race remaining, Stefan Ortelli goes through. He is still on the same lap as Frank Stippler, but it's just that he's the bulk of it behind. He's got a lot of traffic to work away past, and then he would have to try and make up all of that lost ground. I don't think he's going to be able to do it, even though the safety car, in theory, could have helped him. It didn't, because of the fact that he was trapped for so long under the red light. But that was what happened, of course, earlier on to the number 16 car of René Rast. So what goes around comes around, and a drive-through penalty for Stefan Ortelli as well for crossing the white line pit entry. So that slightly dubious entry to the pit lane has caught them out, and there's going to be a drive-through penalty for Stefan Ortelli for crossing the white line at pit entry. He didn't do, if you like, a safe entry to the pit lane. A drive-through penalty beckons, and that therefore is the end of the hope of a win, barring a problem for 16 for the number 1 Audi. Stefan Ortelli's late decision to come into the pit lane means that he's crossed the white line that you're not meant to do, and a drive-through penalty. Through Bruxelles goes number 1. Now, Ortelli lies second. He is a lap ahead of the number 66 BMW. That drive-through penalty, does it throw a lifeline to Vita 4-1? I don't think so, because Keckler needs to get himself ahead and be a long way ahead, because the drive-through penalty is going to be, what, 50 seconds or so, and a lap is 2 minutes and 20 at the moment. No, I don't think it's going to help Keckler too much. It might bring him closer, but I don't think it's going to give him the place. And Mark Hayek, is he slowing down? The Lamborghini has let lots of cars go by. There is the charging Frank Keckler. In the sectors, he's not as quick as Ortelli for the moment. So Stefan Ortelli still lapping faster, but he's got that drive-through, and he's a lap ahead, remember, of the number 66 BMW. So it looks as though, even with the penalty, Stefan Ortelli is going to be good for second place. Number 30 Audi there, running in 14th place. Aaron Scott at the wheel of it. Good to see that car going so well. They've had a fair few dramas in earlier Blancpain rounds, but it's a proper Pro-Am team, that, with Aaron Scott and Philip Keane as the two pro drivers, the two AMs being Craig Wilkins and Peter Belshaw. So as the cars work their way out of the pit lane, 66 makes a pit stop anyway. So any thought that it might close with that penalty going the way of number 1 is about to be dispensed with, because this is its last stop of the race. Frank Keckler comes down the pit road, and there is number 1 Audi in as well. So to serve the drive-through, not a stop-go, just a drive-through. Number 1, Stefan Ortelli, down the pit road. He'll keep second, but he'll lose any chance of the race win now. There's the BMW pit stop. This the drive-through for number 1. And collectively, it's all down to the team, isn't it? because the call was made, come in at the last moment, but in doing so, it meant the car contravened that regulation of coming in safely, and you can't go over that white line. So a penalty applied for Stefano Telli, and 66, with just fuel taken, goes back into the race. Frank Kekler looks like Vita 4-1 is going to be good for the podium. Pressing on behind is Maxime Martin, so just wonder whether Maxime's going to be any closer at the end of this either. There is number 1 in second place rejoining, and also in the pit lane in third rejoining is 66. This time Stefano Telli finds a green light at the end of the pit lane, which is very good news for him. He gets away, and there you can see the rip-off windscreen coming from 52, which is in 5th place overall. This is a really good effort, this, from the Pro-Am class-leading car. I know you've got 2 very quick pros in it, in Andrea Bertolini and Alessandro Pierguidi. And Louis Machiels and Nick Homerson have done a good job as well. And there it is, 5th overall, leading its class. Tom Christensen getting onto the tail of Frank Stippler. Here is the second place car, but having lost a lap because of that drive-through penalty. And the way that Tom Christensen has now got himself up with Frank Stippler just makes me wonder whether this is going to be the formation finish now that Audi is starting to orchestrate. Telli turning his way out of Bruxelles, and even if he pulls back that lap, he just needs Stippler to have a problem now. And the number 16 Audi should be able to go to the end. So can number 1 now, the way they've broken up the final stint of Telli into 2 short ones. So coming then down through Pouan. Two BMWs there, you can see, running for 3rd and 4th places. And Telli will lie, 16th is the second of those. It's the Henri Moser sister VDS car. Maxime Martin is 4th in number 3, but he's a bit further back on the road than is Frank Kekler. Number 4 has recovered well from its earlier problems, and in fact will gain another place shortly, because Anthony Beltoise is still in the pit lane. The number 34 Porsche, remember we saw it go through the gravel a little while ago with the 98 Audi. It came in and hasn't gone back out again, so I think it may have ingested some gravel in a nasty way. As far as 52 Louis Machiels is concerned, he's just got to bring the car home now. Well clear, that is, by 5 laps over Christian Menzel there in the Haribo Porsche in the Pro-Am class. Through Bruxelles downhill and the Speaker's corner, and towards Pouan goes Christian Menzel. So second in class here, heading the way of the Haribo Porsche. And behind in third is Olivier Panis in the Sofrev Ferrari. Christian Menzel in his second outing of the year in the Blancpain Endurance Series. He drove this car at Paul Ricard, and certainly bringing Uwe Alpsen into the mix for this race has been a very good idea, because it's gone very strongly. As far as the 3rd place car in the class is concerned, Sofrev number 10 is the car of former Grand Prix racer Olivier Panis. There it is. And it's been a good, solid, steady run, as Olivier was saying to Haley earlier on. It might be a bit frustrating sometimes for the driver not to go flat out, but we know that's part of endurance racing. We can cope with that. And on track, Audi's starting to get themselves together, of course, because behind the 2 Phoenix cars is Stefano Telli, and I suspect he may not be encouraged to try to make up the lap, just sit there now and be part of the formation finish for the Audi squad. You've got 3 cars starting to run together on track, the race leader and then the 2 delayed cars behind. Coming up towards Le Camp here is the red, white and blue Ferrari that is the car of Yannick Malagol, and then behind is the number 25 class-leading Porsche, and Johan van Loo, despite his illness, is going to have one last go in the car. He's been out of it for many, many hours, so he has been able to rehydrate himself and get back into the car to bring it home. So Johan van Loo, the only driver, in fact, to have been taken ill during the course of the race. Mark Blundell was another one after his first stint in the United Autosports Audi yesterday. He was complaining of not being very well and was fearing he'd have to sit out the remainder of the race. Well, as it's transpired, the car having had problems and retired anyway. Maxi Jazz, who was performing here last night and stayed to watch the end of the race. Big petrol head, of course, former racer himself, most recently in the Porsche Carrera Cup GB. And And somebody who was on the grid yesterday, eyeing up his next purchase, I think, because he's got quite a nice collection of cars. And Gilles Vannelet in the Viper is lapped. This is the car that's second in the Gentleman Trophy. Over the line, look, comes Frank Stippler. Behind him is Tom Christensen. Behind him is Stefan Ortelli. And the Audi formation finish starts here. Number 60, which was the Draper, Stephen Jelly, Steph Dusseldorp McLaren, delayed a long time ago. He's going to go back out, I'm told, but only to take the checkered flag. It won't be classified. It's done insufficient distance, but it will go back out. Number 20 Ferrari there is Ludovic Bande, running in 10th place overall and going well as ever in the Pro-Am class. 5th it is at the moment. So the two Sofra Ferraris within the top 5 in the class will be a good result for Jérôme Policamp and his team. So there is Frank Stippler, and behind him, Tom Christensen, sitting on his tail, not looking terribly keen on getting past, is he? How can any more Audis be scooped up into the mix, including, for example, the Gentleman Trophy 41 car here, run by Santilok. Robert Hisson having taken the car over. We heard from him a little while ago. The London-based American, heading for 3rd in the Gentleman Trophy class. And once he's lapped by these three, is the instruction going to be just sit on the tail? 22 more minutes of the Spa 24 hours remain. The 64th running of this race. It began in 1924. It ran for sports cars originally, then it became a touring car race for many, many years as part of the European Touring Car Championship. For a year, the World Touring Car Championship, and then it became just a one-off saloon car race after the ETC fell apart. But when it had a couple of years running for Group N production saloons, effectively, the organisers realised that something needed to be done to restore the glory of the event, and SRO was the answer, bringing GT racing here. For many years, the race was part of the FIA GT Championship, now part of the Blancpain Endurance Series, and a 66-car grid, all GT3 cars, has given a fantastic race, endless fascination, and Frank Stippler leading the way, and it looks as though this is going to be another Audi 24-hour win this year. It, of course, has been the winning brand at Le Mans and the Nürburgring 24 hours, and potentially at Spa as well. Tom Christensen running in 6th spot, comes out of the bus stop, over the timing line. Frank Stippler leads the way, and it's a lap between Stippler and Ortelli now. Down to La Source. Now, how many more laps in 21 minutes? Another 10 possibly. Tom Christensen having his first run in the Spa 24 hours. He's won the Spa 1,000 kilometres for Audi, but his first go in a GT3 car. Car's pound uphill. Stefan Ortelli still pushing as hard as he possibly can. Worked his way past Tom Christensen. Maxime Martin remains the man who has done the best lap of the race for BMW, but now some of the sting taken out of the race because of the gap of a lap between the top two. Frank Stippler leading the way. Even if Stefan Ortelli were to get past him, it would be virtually impossible to make up that lap unless 16 went off the road, I reckon. Minutes remain for the Spa 24 hours, the 4th round of the Blancpain Endurance Series. And there you can see Frank Stippler running behind him, Stefan Ortelli, so on track ahead of Tom Christensen. So the 1st and 2nd place cars running 1st and 2nd on the road there. Up towards the pith path they come, and Stefan Ortelli, a former winner of this race. Frank Stippler has won the Nürburgring 24 hours this year, but looks like he could well be adding the Spa 24 to that as well. Comes through campus, and lots of people expected Audi to be the winning brand, but they've had to work hard for this. It has not been an easy run, and Team WRT, the regular team in the championship, has really risen to the challenge brought by Audi Sport Performance team to this race. Marc VDS Racing also, of course, gave it a really good shot, and hasn't particularly done anything wrong. That penalty didn't help. Being attacked from behind by a Ferrari didn't help. Being held in the pits, having punctures didn't help either. But Marc VDS, and so too Team Vita 41, have all given it a good shot. But over the course of the weekend, Audis have proved to be strong cars once again. It's a very encouraging result, though, this 4v4-1, because the car, as I was saying earlier on, was pretty anonymous at Monza, faded at Silverstone, retired with mechanical woes at Paul Ricard, but has been a strong car race long, starting on pole position, and Frank Kettler now bringing it down towards the bus stop. Turns right, turns left. Over the timing line. Is he clear of Maxime Martin? Yes, by about 2/3 of a lap. So they're on the same lap as one another, but it's going to be third place for this BMW, and a notional win at 6 hours, therefore, for Marc VDS is the consolation prize, if you like. It's still points for the championship. Are we going to see any more this year of Stippler, Rast and Piccini? Andrea Piccini drove for Team WRT at Silverstone. It'd be good to have that Spa 24 potential winning car back again for another round of the championship. Frank Kettler storms up the Camel Straight, heading towards Le Con, and the BMW running in third place, set for its best finish of the year. Kettler a winner here in GT1, the man that started on pole position, and another good result within the Spa 24 hours for Ricard Bartels' team. The V4-1 Team Italy Ferraris having had their dramas during the course of the race and retiring, but the traditional V4-1 liveried BMW with the black and turquoise colours drops downhill. Windscreen well and truly splattered with many a Belgian bug from this morning. And the drivers, I think, all very pleased that conditions have been so much better today. The rain yesterday, we had those two really heavy downpours, and it really was very unpleasant for everybody to try and drive in those conditions. But from early morning to the end of the race, a dry track, the sun has been breaking through, and that has also tempted the fans back out to come to cheer home the drivers. So we've seen Frank Kettler's BMW. This is a car that's chasing it in fourth place. Maxime Martin at the wheel. He's on the same lap, but 2/3 of it back. So unless Kettler has a problem, he's not going to gain a place. But having won the 6-hour race, in quotes, this car heading for fourth position. It was a race that Marc VDS really wanted to win. Had a really good chance of winning as well. Looked so strong early on. The car looked bulletproof to begin with. But then it had a puncture. It was hit from behind. It was delayed twice at the red light in pit stops. And there was the stop-go penalty also for Marcus Paltela. And then the car struggling to restart after pit stops. You add all that together, and the fact that the car is fourth, still very impressive indeed. Maxime Martin, once again, proving to be very, very fast in a GT3 car, whether it's a BMW or anything else. He's the fastest driver of the race. He's done the best lap. Stefano Ortelli, early on in the morning, around about 7:40, did the fastest lap. Wasn't long before Maxime Martin took back that mantle, having been quickest initially on lap 3. He did it again on lap 390 to take the fastest lap. We're currently on lap 503. Quarter of an hour remains, and the BMW going up towards Blancpain with a clear circuit. It's not always been that way. 66 starters, round about half the field still circulating, and of those, not everybody will be classified, because you've got to have done a certain amount of distance and take the flag. So out of the bus stop comes number 3. Maxime Martin goes through the sister car down in 15th place. Again, disappointment for Hesmans, Langin and Moser. So out of La Source goes the better place Marc VDS BMW, and Maxime Martin heading for fourth in the Pro Cup and for points as well. Goes through a Rouge, powers uphill. The car was third in class at the 12-hour mark, so it's not been a bad haul of points for them. Effectively, first, third and fourth if you take the point scoring elements of the race together. Now, this is the car that's on target not just for fifth, but also for a win in the Pro-Am Cup. It's Louis Machiels charged with bringing it home, the Belgian driver. That's a great effort by him, by Nick Homerson, by Andrea Bertolini and Alessandro Pierguidi to bring the car into fifth place. AF Corsa running this fleet of Ferraris. Some have had problems. This car has been very, very impressive indeed. It's barely missed a beat. And in terms of any problems for it, a gear lever yesterday evening when the car had a problem downshifting. Is about the only problem I think that they've reported on the car. Louis Machiels, after being excluded from the race last year, redeeming himself now. He's not put a wheel wrong and goes through that left-hander speaker corner down towards Pouan. Ferrari 458 heading for a second-class win in a row, and then in sixth place is the Tank Tape Special Audi of Tom Christensen, Andre Lotterer and Marcel Fassler, because the number 6 car, with all the tape on it to hold together the damaged bodywork from its incident yesterday when Andre Lotterer was hit by Adam Christodoulou, it's Tom Christensen at the wheel, running in a good, solid 6th place and 5th in class, therefore. Could have been a whole lot better, but it's been a good recovery, and Tom Christensen sitting on the back there of Stefan Ortelli as they go through Les Combes. This car has been driven remorselessly since it rejoined after that earlier delay, and if there's been the hint of a gap, it has dived for it, and that's why more of the bodywork looks a little bit scuffed as well. So it's certainly been in the wars, number 6, but it is on target for 6th place. Perhaps a frustrating result, but it's been a mighty fight back from 63rd, which is where the car rejoined, to be now looking for 6th position. Three Audis together, Stippler, Ortelli and Christensen. Now this is the 7th place car, Christian Menzel at the wheel of the Haribo Porsche that's heading for 2nd in Pro-Am. Menzel, Altzen, Hans-Guido Riegel, Mike Stursberg have been the drivers, and it's had a good solid run, this car. Poor tyre choice in the wet last night cost it some time, and so too, to be fair, to the relative pace of the drivers, because Hans-Guido Riegel is not the fastest of the 4, that's for certain, but as long as he can keep out of trouble and do consistent lap times, that's all that can be asked in the Pro-Am Cup. Mike Stursberg is quicker than him, and there is 24 in the pit lane. Now this car, 11th, Mark Hayek has just brought it in. Could it lose a place to number 17, Martin Jensen? Possibly is the answer. Now, what has brought it in? It's up on its jacks. Is this for tyres? Is this for a check? Drops down again. But does it rejoin, or do they need to keep doing some work on this car? With 11 minutes to go, the Lamborghini does rejoin, a bit hesitantly. Possibly a bit of damage to the front of that car. But after a pit stop to make sure that all is good, then the car heading back down the pit lane, and the race leader on lap 505, shaking his head, Mark Hayek, so not terribly happy about all that. Race leader on lap 505 at the moment. We've got just 11 minutes to go. Last year it was 545 laps completed, but shows you how many safety car periods we've had this year and how the pace of the race has been affected by the rain, that it's going to be a much reduced number. Now this is Mark Hayek on the grass, which may have done a bit of damage to the front of the car. Damages the splitter, but did he get there because of driver error, or did somebody force him off? Well, either way, it's a frustrated Mark Hayek. He's done the right thing. He's pitted to make sure that the car is okay. There it is for another angle. Comes into view on the grass. I think he just ran wide, didn't he, and backed off to get the moment all under control and to drive across the grass to head for the pit lane. So Mark Hayek does rejoin. The Lamborghini heads up towards Les Combes, as in the meantime Olivier Panis at the wheel of the number 10 Ferrari heads for 8th place. Finding traffic as well, still pretty busy in patches out on the circuit at the moment. Into the last 10 minutes of the race then. And the last thing anybody needs now is a drama, but 82 is in the pit lane, that's the Viper. Most recently Gilles Vanelay was behind the wheel of it. Is it going to get away safely? It does. That's the good thing about being in the endurance pits, at least you're downhill. So the car fires up, gets away, and back into the race. Gilles Vanelay still at the wheel of that car. 85 also has had its dramas early on in the race. Another car in the Gentleman Trophy. It's Jose Close at the wheel of the Ford Mustang at the moment. That car heading potentially for the podium in the class, which is a fairly unorthodox GT3 car, but it's good to have it in the race. Adds variety. The Pro Speed Porsche goes through there, number 75, that was doing pretty well heading towards midnight, getting itself into contention. The Mark Goosen, Xavier Martin, Mark Henrici car. It's now 21st, having had delays because of brake issues over the course of the race, but the Pro Speed car continues, and so does Mark Hayek here in 11th place overall in the number 24 Lamborghini. Now, Mark Hayek here, replay. Car was a bit smoky coming out of the corner towards Pouan, and smoke from the front right. Is that bodywork against tyre, or is that something more sinister? Mark Hayek may well have to come back into the pit lane at the end of this lap. So the 24 Lamborghini is in the last sector, and keeping an eye to see whether or not it is going to end up in the pit lane. So, having gone across the grass, doing a bit of damage, it comes out of the bus stop. Does he carry on the track? I think he does. The Lamborghini has gone across the line, so it stays on the circuit, despite that bit of smoke we saw from the front right corner, and Hans Reiter having a good look at it. He's on the radio to tell Mark Hayek whether to come in or to stay out, and stay out is the answer, but maybe at a reduced pace. Don't take any risks at this point. So in 11th place overall, 6th in class, Mark Hayek. 7.5 minutes, give or take, still remain. And it looks like it's going to be a second Spa 24 Hours win for Audi, the second in a row, of course. So there is Mark Hayek, the car that's been shared by Peter Cox, Prince Albert, Multern, Taxis and Jos Menton. Cox and Menton, former winners of the race. And a far better result this year than last, when Mark Hayek's car had a huge engine failure going down towards Eau Rouge. Very spectacular it was, with smoke and flame out of the back. This year the car has gone very well indeed. Yes, it's had one or two dramas, but much better than last year. The wheel bearing problem early on cost it some time. Now there is 88 Alvaro Parent back at the wheel, and the McLaren has run very, very strongly in this race. It seems to have been Alvaro Parent in the car for the bulk of it, to be fair. Whether it's a transponder issue or not, I don't know, but the McLaren on target for 9th place, and with a number of McLarens having retired, mainly through damage and for accidents, to be fair, this car just kept on going, and it's a really encouraging result for the team, because reliability has been the question mark over the McLarens, but this car has just gone pounding round and round and has looked very strong indeed. Had a drive-through early on for overtaking under the safety car, and another car that's being given a drive-through is number 50. Same situation, in fact, for the Gerber Chiocci Ide Giammaria Ferrari, overtaking before the end of the safety car procedure. So even now the stewards are still applying penalties where they are needed. So we've seen the car 9th, Alvaro Parent, and the car that is in 10th place, Ludovic Badet's Ferrari, one of the soft rev cars, 50 for its drive-through penalty. That'll have to be taken pretty soon, I would have thought. As Christian Menzel here works his way up towards the bus stop, and to the inside there is number 50, and the drive-through penalty is beckoning. There's the board. Raffaele Giammaria will have to come in next time around. Down through La Source then goes the Ferrari. So Raffaele Giammaria trying to work his way back into contention. That car delayed early in the race. 29th it is, but it's about to lose yet more time with the drive-through penalty. And the race has got now less than 5 minutes to go. So 3 more laps maximum, I would have thought, as the race-leading car of Frank Stippler has certainly reduced its pace now, lapping in the 2:29s, and Stefan Ortelli sitting behind him dutifully, not trying to find a way through, and aware that he's not going to be able to win the race, so might as well just sit behind, play the team game, go for the photo finish. There's the number 20 Ferrari that currently runs in 10th place, Ludovic Badet. Very fast former single-seater racer before he came into GT racing. And Ludovic Badet in this car that was a retirement from Paul Ricard with engine problems, shared with Jean-Luc Bobelic, Patrice Guélard and Tristan Vautier, former Star Mazda champion in the States last year. And the car running well, heading for 10th position. heads out of Eau Rouge now. Ahead of it on track is the GT3 Racing Audi in 14th place. Aaron Scott at the wheel of it. And here are the Audis, which are going to get 2 more laps in. By the look of it, coming over the line. So through goes Frank Stippler, heading the queue. And there'll be this and 1 more for the checkered flag. And the race officially finishes at the F1 pits. But there will be the ceremonial checkered flag being waved, but they are now heading down past the endurance pits, the traditional start and finish area, the original start and finish area for all racing at Spa. So as the leaders work their way uphill, Frank Stippler, René Rast, Andrea Piccini, looking as though it's going to be a great debut for them in the Blancpain Endurance Series as a driving combination. Piccini has raced already this year. He drove for Team WRT last year, but Rast and Stippler, new to the championship, and an excellent result beckons with just 3 more minutes to go. And now, of course, that the race win is there for the taking and the order is as it is, so Frank Stippler is able to relax his pace, so he doesn't have to worry about fuel anymore. The car can run at a much more conservative pace. The last lap was a 2:33, in fact, so from 2:19's Maxime Martin's best lap of the race. The car's getting more and more leisurely now as they come towards the end, but there's no point in Frank Stippler trying to do a qualifying lap. He just has to bring the car home safely for the win. Stefan Ortelli there behind him, running second, a lap down, and then the third of the Audis, Tom Christensen, running in 6th place. You go back to the European Touring Car Championship era of the Spa 24 Hours, there were Audis in those races, but normally in the smaller engine class. 1 or 2 of the smaller teams tried to run Audi 80s, for example, when Audis weren't exactly fashionable touring cars. And it's only since not just GT racing, but GT3 racing, specifically at Spa, that the cars have become victors of the 24 Hours. And Audi having its first Spa 24 victory last year. The most winning brand, BMW, 21 victories in the history of the event. BMW, the best BM, is going to be 3rd, Frank Ketteler. Ferrari, which is going to take a class win, has had 3 outright victories in the history of the race. So Frank Stippler making his way through Blanchimont. He's not quite timed it to perfection here, even though he's been lifting off. He's going to have to do 1 more lap still. Comes up towards the bus stop and he will go on to that last lap any moment, turning right and then left. So it's going to be the Phoenix team that will score the win, potentially, barring any disasters on this last lap. And the home squad, Belgian Audi Club Team WRT, set for 2nd place. And across the line, 3rd, entered as Audi Sport Team Phoenix. It's the car of Tom Christensen. Across the line, 3rd in the queue. It's going to be 6th in the classification. The 3rd place car is that of Frank Ketteler, some way back now. They're on the last lap. That is being confirmed by the race director. You can see the clock ticking down. The 24 Hours are going to be up around about halfway around the lap, if not sooner. So up through Radion go the 3 Audis. 1st, 2nd and 6th they run. Ahead on the road there is the Mercedes to get out of the way. And for René Rast, I think it's certainly been worth giving up 2 Porsche Super Cup races, even though he tends to win them, to score a win in the Spa 24 Hours. The first time he has taken part in the race. And comes then out of Lecon, the car that he shared with Frank Stippler. Stippler at the wheel, and Stefan Ortelli behind. Now this Mercedes has rather got in the way of Audi's formation finish, hasn't it? Because the idea is to get the 3 Audis together, and the number 19 Mercedes, with Oliver Morley at the wheel, is not playing ball here. Tom Christensen at the wheel of number 6 from 63rd at the end of the first hour of the race. An excellent job to get up into 6th position and 5th in class. Now the 2 Audis do go past, but I know they've been helped by a few other cars dropping out ahead of them, but even so it's been a great drive by Christensen, by Fassler and Lothra. And 6th place beckons for a car that many people thought was going to be the winner, but it's been a quirky old race this, what with dramas, with the weather, with incidents, with penalties. And there is the Gentleman Trophy Viper slowing to let the leading cars go by. So a handful of corners to go, and all the way up and down the pit lane there are teams hanging off the debris fencing ready to cheer home their cars, whether it's for a win or just finishing, because getting to the end of any 24-hour race is something special. And for the Audi team, the celebrations are about to begin. Ferrari there's going to have to do one more lap, isn't it, in the Pro-Am class, the Bachelier Malagol car. But the Audis getting themselves together. The checkered flag is at the ready. It is going to be a win in the total 24 hours of Spa for Audi, specifically for Audi Sport Performance Team, for René Rast, Andrea Piccini and Frank Stippler, who comes across the line to win the 24 hours of Spa for 2012. The Ford Mustang struggling across the line as well there, you can see, as it tries to get going and take the flag. The three Audis line themselves up side by side as they come over the timing line, and victory goes to Stippler, Piccini and Rast from Ortelli, Hasse and Mies in second place. Frank Kekler coming through for third, along with Matthias Lauda and Greg Franchi, and they're home in fourth place, Maxime Martin, along with Bas Linders and Marcus Paltela. It's been a good run for them. It's not the result they wanted, but even so, it has been a good effort. Coming through for seventh place is the Haribo Porsche. Christian Menzel at the wheel. He's behind the Pro Speed car there that's being brought home by Mark Goossens. And it doesn't look like the Mustang is going to get over the line, does it? It has stopped just a few inches short. And there the marshals wave the flags, and great photographs will be taken. And how about this to get the Mustang over the timing line? It's a big, heavy car, and a great effort this. There's Jose Close who was driving it, and so close to the end, Jose has to push it across. Puts all of his weight behind the Mustang. It gets across the timing line. Has he done enough to be classified as a finisher? 38th the car is, and hopefully that's enough to satisfy the officialdom that the car has finished the race, having to be pushed across the line. Has he done it? Not quite. There's still a little bit more to go. How about this for commitment? The car doesn't want to move any further, and Jose Close giving it everything he has got to try and make sure the car is pushed over the line. Andrea Piccini and René Rast starting to celebrate a victory. Frank Stippler will bring the car to Parc Fermé. And let's try and catch a word with the race winners, because in the celebrations is Haley.
Andrea, congratulations!
Thank you. It was about time. After 10 years trying to win this race, I'm very happy for all the boys because they did an incredible job.
You had fun doing it?
Yeah, it's been very hard, especially last night when the conditions were very difficult, but now we won, so that's important. So thanks to Audi, thanks to Phoenix, I'm very happy for all the guys.
Thank you.
And a punctured tyre on the last lap and a spin. This is Frank Kekler at the last corner. The number 66 BMW has got a puncture. He's not yet got to the checkered flag. He's within sight of it. And Frank Kekler on the last lap of the race has had a tyre go down. He's going to come across the line. That was a sting in the tail, wasn't it? So on the last lap, the third place car has a puncture, comes across the timing line, and Kekler is confirmed as being in third place on, in fact, the same lap as Stefan Ortelli. But big drama right at the very end for Vita 4-1. A punctured tyre coming up to the line for Frank Kekler, and a spin at the last corner, just what he didn't need. René Rast there being congratulated by everybody. Not a bad debut in the Spa 24 hours. Let's try and grab a word with him. There's René Rast. Somewhere in there is Haley. Go for it, Haley. He's all yours.
René, congratulations. An almost perfect weekend for you.
Yeah, perfect weekend. I mean, I'm so pleased. I'm happy. We won the 24 hours of Spa. It's my first time. I'm so happy. Thanks to the guys that did an awesome job. Perfect.
Thank you.
And there's Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich as well, who is about to congratulate René Rast, and no doubt will be next on Haley's hit list to have a word with. The Audi Motorsport boss has seen some of his cars hit problems and indeed hit barriers, but collectively Audi has hit the mark with another race win, a second successive Spa 24-hour victory. Are we entering a period now of Audi domination in this event, as we have at Le Mans for the last few years? Let's go back down to the pit lane. There are more people to hear from at the end of the Spa 24 hours. Haley, who have you got now?
Dr. Ulrich, congratulations. A wonderful weekend for Audi.
Yeah, it was a perfect weekend at the end, with having the two cars in front of both of the teams. And at the end, even having the third car with our guys from Le Mans that made it from the last place after 1 hour to place number 6. I think an impressive comeback, and yeah, just a great result for Audi. And the teams really did a great job, and that is the reward.
Thank you. Congratulations.
An excellent result for Audi, and the celebrations are going to go on long into the night, I think. So the Phoenix Racing team takes the win, and 6th place as well, thanks to the efforts of, as you've just been hearing, Marcel Fassler, Andre Lotter, Tom Christensen, and Frank Kekkeler with that punctured tyre on the very last lap. Quite extraordinary, but he got to the end, and there are the cars on the slowing down lap. But I think Frank Kekkeler may well have had to have parked the BMW with that tyre coming off the rim. Well, the championship moves on from Spa to the Nürburgring in September, where it runs along with the FIA GT1 World Championship. In fact, Frank Kekkeler has not parked and he's going to limp on. The tyre almost off the rim, and as he battles on, the champagne is open at Audi. Completely different feeling there. There's one team worrying about its car getting to the end of the slowing down lap. Others are celebrating either with champagne or beer, or both. And the Audi party has begun. Is that being organised or being arrogant when you've already got the alcohol on ice ready to celebrate at the end of the race? Well, either way, Audi has done a great job to win the 24 Hours of Spa, and the cars now will make their way to Parc Fermé. The drivers will go to the podium, and we'll be able to hear, no doubt, from Frank Stippler with the 5th placed car being the Ferrari to win the Pro-Am class, and taking the flag, Nick Hommerson, Louis Machiels, Andrea Bertolini and Alessandro Pierguidi. Great effort from all involved there as well. The Audis come down the pit road. Frank Stippler adds this win to his Nürburgring 24-hour success from earlier on in the year. There's number 1, Stefano Telli, having finished in 2nd place. It may not be the ideal result for him here, but it's good for the championship, of course, because he's ahead in terms of points at the end of the race of the Marc VDS BMW, and he, Christopher Hasser and Christopher Mies don't just think about this race, they think about the championship as well, whereas very much a one-off for the guest Audis, if you like, of the Phoenix team. Well, 66 cars started, the survivors making their way down the pit lane, and the SRO technical team will wave them to the scrutineering area, make sure that everything complies to the regulations, and the drivers will go to the podium and then to the press conference. Fastest lap of the race, Maxime Martin, the BMW finishing in the end in 4th position. Tom Christensen there, 6th. What a comeback. In the end, the car only 8 laps down. So a really good effort. And Stefano Telli is about to go past the Audi contingent in the pit lane, and Team WRT trying as hard as it could to take a win. Came close, but that gamble under the safety car didn't work for 2 reasons. One was the subsequent drive-through because of the way that the car came in, crossing the white line, but also the time lost being stuck at the end of the pit lane under the red light. And Frank Kekkeler still limping around with the tyre hanging off the rim. So the Vita 4-1 BMW takes 3rd place, but it might be some time before that car gets back to the pit lane. It's the last car that will do so. The course closing car is behind it, and Frank Kekkeler, marshals think he's going to come, but there they are, heading back to their point by the side of the track to applaud his efforts, and the official vehicles behind sort of sweeping the circuit. Frank Kekkeler limping it back. The last thing he wants to do now is do any more damage to the car. Doesn't have to go back at any particular speed other than to get to the podium. Got a punctured tyre on the very last lap of the race. I'm surprised actually he's been forced to limp round here and do another lap on that rubber, but he has done so. And Frank Kekkeler heading in towards Blanchimont, and they're the marshals at the bus stop, which include 1 or 2 British marshals I can see in the middle of all of that. 1 or 2 from UK circuits. So truly European marshalling force at the Spa 24 Hours. So the group photograph has been taken, and down in the pit lane, drivers hopping out of their cars and celebrating with teams, with mechanics, and in the endurance pits the drivers for the podium will stop at the foot of the tower, make their way up to the podium, and of course Frank Stippler has already collected the Audi flag. So winner in the Nürburgring 24 Hours, winner for the Spa 24 Hours. There's the 2nd placed Audi to park next to the winning car. Frank Stippler about to clamber out. Unplugs the radio, the drinks bottle, And Tom Christensen's car, the 6th place one, not needed for the podium. Stefan Ortelli, in the meantime, thinking about what might have been, but it was a great effort put in by Team WRT. And as the door opens, there is Stefan Ortelli to say to Frank Stippler, well done. An Audi 1-2, BMW 3rd. And warm embrace between the two drivers. Frank Stippler sort of uncoils himself, very tall German driver, having been folded up inside the Audi. But an excellent effort by him, by René Rast, used to this type of racing, and by Andrea Piccini. So, the Pro-Am class, just to go back to that for a second, 52 Ferrari, the winning car, with the Porsche of Christian Menzel coming home in second. Let's go back down to join Haley.
Frank, congratulations. You are the winner of the total 24-hour of Spa. How does that feel?
Unbelievable. I mean, the start was quite difficult because we were on 28th position. And with this kind of strong competitors, this was really difficult to get through the field. We had 3 or 4 times contact with other cars, and for that reason, some issues about the wheel bearing and so on. At least the Audi R8 was a tank, and I'm very thankful. Thank you.
I'll leave you to get a drink, Frank. Congratulations. Thank you.
Frank Stippler has done a huge amount of driving in that car today, and a great team performance as René Rast and Andrea Piccini come to greet rather emotional Frank Stippler. Another excellent result. Now let's hear from Stefan Ortelli. 2nd place for the French driver. He's with Haley now.
Stefan, congratulations. A podium finish for you. Not quite the win that you were battling for with your teammate, but still a great result for you.
It's an amazing day. For me, it was such a pleasure to drive this car. I've got 2 extremely very talented young drivers. They've been doing an excellent job. We didn't put a foot wrong, and I think we've just been beaten by better than us. And congratulations to Phoenix, but also to us, to WRT. I mean, we are here. Last year 1st, this year 2nd. I mean, we can be proud for us, and we can be proud for Audi. Bravo. Bravo, guys.
Thank you, Stefan.
So Stefan Ortelli will make his way to the podium. The Christophers, Mies and Hasse will join him, of course. And Frank Stippler, who, as I say, seems to have done the lion's share of the driving in that car, certainly today. Andrea Piccini, I think I'm right in saying, hasn't been in it since early on in the morning. But Frank Stippler looking really worn out. Smiles for the cameras. And an excellent result for Audi. A 1-2 finish, and the spoils shared across the 2 teams. Oh, an exhausted Frank Stippler sits by the side of the car. Needs to take on an awful lot of water, I think, before he heads to the podium. And the 2nd place car, that of Ortelli, Hasse and Mies, confirmed with 3rd going the way of the BMW team Vita 4-1 Z4. Piccini, Rast and Stippler win the total 24 hours of Spa ahead of Hasse, Mies and Ortelli. 3rd to Kekler, Franchi and Lauda. And 4th for the car that looked like it might be on for a win, certainly in the early stages, the BMW of Marc VDS for Paltela, Leinders and Martin. 5th, Nick Homerson, Louis Machiels, Andrea Bertolini and Alessandro Pierguidi to win their class. With 6th, a great recovery for Marcel Fassler, Tom Christensen and Andre Lotterer. 7th overall goes the way of Hans-Guido Riegel, Mike Sturzberg, Christian Menzel and Uwe Altsam. With 8th to Olivier Panis, Fabien Barthez, Olivier Debar and Morgan Moulin-Trafford. 9th to Alvaro Parent, Rob Barth, Chris Goodwin and Roger Wills. Great effort to be the best McLaren home. And 10th to Jean-Luc Bobelic, Patrice Goyla, Ludovic Badet and Tristan Vautier. Hayek, Cox, Menton and Vontour Taxis, 11th in the Lamborghini. And 12th, a really good solid run this by Anderson, Jensen and Ian Dockrell, keeping out of trouble and a good steady run to the end. 13th, the better of the 2 Pro-Speed Porsches, number 74, the car of Van Splunteren, Hoovy, Sunier and Derdala. And as you look lower down the order, number 94 Porsche wins the Cup class, run by Speed Lover, the only one that survived in the end. And plenty of retirements, plenty of big names as well that didn't do the distance, either through damage or through mechanical problems. And from the 66 starters, unofficially, just half the field making it to the end. Louis Machiel's class winner from Pro-Am. And the number 52 Ferrari driver is down in the pit lane. Let's hear from the Belgian driver now with Haley.
Louis, congratulations on your victory in the Pro-Am class. Well done to you.
Thank you. For me, it was a very important victory because last year here with Vodafone and Francorchamps was terrible what we had. And okay, for the team, for everybody, for Nick, Andrea, it's a wonderful victory. And sure, next year we will be there again. Thank you.
You have a message in your own language for the Belgian fans?
Beste vrienden, ik vind het fantastisch dat we hier revanche hebben kunnen nemen na hetgeen wat er vorig jaar is gebeurd. Voor mij is dit een enorme overwinning. Ik ben weer gemotiveerd om volgend jaar terug hier te zijn. Dank u wel. Ciao.
Dank u.
Yes, last year with a radio problem that meant that he didn't hear a penalty being given to him. Louis Machiels was excluded from the race, as was the car. And so it was a rather embarrassing way to end the race, because for lap after lap there were pictures of the team hanging over the pit wall trying to bring him in, which Louis was unaware of. And when he did come in, then the car was stopped by the officials, wasn't allowed back out. Well, this year he certainly made amends. Andrea Bertolini was one of his co-drivers last year, so for Andrea as well as for himself, he has certainly done great things. It's the Pro Cup result with the Audi 1-2, a lap between them. Third to BMW, fourth to BMW, fifth to Audi, sixth to BMW. And you can see the way that the gaps opened up during the course of the race. Seventh in class, the Pro Speed Porsche, number 75. That was the only other finisher, because of course number 2 we saw crash out, and the 71 Ferrari having lost a wheel earlier as well. Well, the drivers now making their way up towards the podium, and very shortly there's going to be a noisy reception, I'm sure, for the top 3 teams, with third place going the way of the Frank Kechler, Matthias Lauda and Greg Franchi BMW. In Pro-Am, just to recap, AF Corsa Ferrari wins ahead of the Haribo Porsche, and then third in class, the first of the Sofrev Ferraris, the Von Ryan Racing McLaren fourth, Sofrev Ferrari fifth, and the Blancpain Reiter Lamborghini coming home in 6th place. And again, as you look down through the order there, that's on the number of laps done. Quite a few of those cars didn't get to the checkered flag for myriad reasons. All the cars required for the podium there, parked under the race control building, the old race control building, ready to go to the podium, where a huge crowd has gathered. Fans, photographers, guests, sponsors, VIPs, you name it. And lots of Belgian flags as well, ready to be waved. So, as soon as all the drivers for the Pro Cup podium are ready, out they will come. And 4 podium ceremonies, of course, because there is 1 per class. It happens that it's the same top 3 in Pro Cup as overall. And the drivers will be brought out in reverse order very shortly. So, BMW in third spot for Vita 4-1. Vitaphone having won the race in 05, in 06 and in 08. And the drivers on the podium, Matthias Lauda, Frank Kechler and Greg Franchi, for whom there was a great reception, the Belgian driver winner last year. Frank Kechler there stands in the middle, the man that qualified on pole position, and the car there or thereabouts race long. The second place team onto the podium, Christopher Haas, Christopher Mies and Stefan Utelli. But the loudest cheer of all is going to be reserved for the winners. For Audi Sport Performance Team, for René Rast, Andrea Piccini and for Frank Stippler, who makes his way onto the podium. A job well done indeed. Handshakes all round. The drivers make their way to the top step of the podium. And also the winning team representative is there as the German national anthem is now played. Ernst Moser on the podium, whose team it is that has operated the cars that have been in first and sixth places in the end. And the celebrations now commence on the podium. The Audi R8 project, which has been really the baby, I suppose, in many respects, of Werner Frohwein, who is retiring after this race. We saw him a little while ago embracing Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich, and the boss of the Quattro project has overseen this GT3 development and has now seen a second successive Spa 24 victory. So for Werner Frohwein's point of view, it's been another very successful weekend, and if you like, a great retirement present. So there are the drivers on the podium. Ernst Moser from Phoenix at the far end. The Haribo Bear is making his presence felt as well, as now the winners' trophies are presented. Very, very happy drivers on the top step of the podium. Stippler, Puccini and Rast victorious. You heard Andrea Puccini talking about how many years he's tried for to win this race, but it's finally come good. The trophy is now going to all three drivers. One for the photographs, then one each. Trophies in the air. Lots of applause from the fans down below. And the feeling of Greg Franchi will be interesting to find out about, because of course he knows what it's like to be on the top step. It's been a much tougher year for him driving for BMW than for Audi this year as part of the Vita 4-1 team, but good to have him on the podium for the first time this year, as now the trophies are presented to Stefan Ortelli, Christopher Hasse, and there to Christopher Mies. He gets his trophy first of all. Ernst Moser there being congratulated as well. And so for Belgian Audi Club Team WRT, a win at Paul Ricard and a second place in the Spa 24 hours. As far as the championship is concerned, it's good news. As far as the wish to win the race dashed for another year. And then we'll have the trophies presented in a moment to the third place team that are there on the podium. Greg Franchi, Frank Kechler and Matthias Lauda. It's the first time we've had this year anything other than a Mark VDS BMW on the podium. But it's finally happened, and it's Vita 4-1 that comes out on top of the Inter-Nissan BMW battle this weekend. And the Mark VDS car finishes fourth, but makes a change not to have any representation on the podium. There's Ernst Moser getting his trophy from the winning team's point of view, and the Blancpain clock as well. So a very, very happy man indeed. And it's a guest appearance effectively in the Blancpain Endurance Series. It'd be great if the team would come back to do more races before the end of the year, wouldn't it? Because it certainly made its presence felt this weekend. And although some people complain that it's a works outfit in what's meant to be a non-works championship, it certainly raises the bar and it puts the pressure on the other teams to deliver. And of course the pseudo-works car's not infallible. Saw how the number 6 car lost ground early on in the race and was able to battle back into 6th place. But however well drilled the team is, however high the expectations, always something lurking that could just catch you out. So the drivers, after the photographs, have at their feet the champagne, which is the last task they have on the podium. And it's the second place drivers, Christopher Mies, Christopher Hasse, Stefan Ortelli, I think, who are first with the bottles. Everybody gets drenched, and there'll be some rather soggy and fragrant drivers that go to the press conference shortly. And whether or not the winning car gets a drop of champagne, rather doubt. I think the drivers might save that for themselves. But the Audi R8 LMS Ultra has done the team proud to come home as the winning car at Audi Sport Performance Team. And Ernst Moser gets a soaking from all and sundry. So another excellent race in the history of the Spa 24 hours, the 64th running of this race, and certainly the decision a decade or so ago to move it away from the struggling touring car concept with so many different classes and regulations around the world, not really built for endurance racing anymore. It was a race that was really losing its glory and getting smaller entries and poorer racing and smaller crowds, but the decision to make it a GT race, initially with FIA GT and more recently with the Blancpain Endurance Series, has been a very good thing indeed. And the entry has been building and building and building and building, and this year another enthralling race has been the result. So as the drivers make their way off the podium, very shortly the podium will be readied for the Pro-Am victors. We've heard from Louis Machiels as part of that winning squad. He'll make his way onto the podium, but first of all, I think there are more photographs to be taken. If you thought the race went on for a long time, podiums at the Spa 24 Hours go on for quite a long time as well, especially for the top 3 teams overall. So for Audi a 1-2, BMW the best of the rest in 3rd, and BMW 4th, Ferrari 5th, Audi 6th, Porsche 7th, Ferrari 8th, McLaren 9th, Ferrari 10th is the way the different brands are represented. And Phoenix Racing, one of the top DTM teams, turning its attention for this weekend to long-distance GT racing, very different from a couple of weeks ago when Phoenix was taking part in the DTM non-championship round in Munich in the stadium, which was the short made-for-television spectacle with cars running in parallel lanes. Totally different concept to masterminding a car around Spa for 24 hours, but it has been done successfully, that's for sure. Frank Stippler there walks forward to accept the applause and gets hold of his trophy. More photographs to be taken, yep. So all of this being orchestrated, I think, by the photographers from down below shouting what they need. So the drivers are there, and indeed more trophies to be presented, because there's the top 3 overall positions and then the Pro Cup as well. So I'll need a small lorry, I think, to get all the silverware back up to the race control building on the other pit, which is where the press conference will take place. There are more podiums to come. Pro-Am, the Gentleman Trophy and the Cup class, of course, but all the drivers having to patiently wait their turn at the moment while the top 3 teams outright and from the Pro Cup take the glory. That is it from that podium, as we see the checkered flag waved for an Audi formation finish, a 1-2 in the total 24 hours of Spa. An enthralling race with the lead seesawing between 2 different Audis run by 2 different teams, but in the end, Frank Stippler, René Rast and Andrea Piccini come home as the winners of the total 24 hours of Spa. From Hayley Coxon and from me, David Addison, it's goodbye from Belgium. Down in the pit lane, the winning cars from the other classes are there. The scrutineers will need them pretty soon, but the drivers, first of all, making their way up onto the podium for the Pro-Am top 3. And 3rd in the class, going the way of Olivier Panis, along with Fabien Barthez. Very successful debut in motor racing at this level. Eric Debar and Morgan Moulin-Trafford from the Sofrev Ferrari. 2nd place going the way of Uwe Altsum, along with Christian Menzel, Mike Stursberg and Hans-Guido Riegel in the Haribo Porsche. A car that went well all the way through the race, but again it shows you the different speed of the drivers and how that's going to have an effect on the race result. But the top step of the podium claimed by Andrea Bertolini, Louis Machiels, Nick Homerson and Alessandro Pierguidi. So for AF Corsa, Andrea Bertolini, Alessandro Pierguidi, Louis Machiels and Nick Homerson take the victory, and the trophy is now to be presented for a team that didn't just win its class but finished in 5th place overall, which is a great effort. And the drivers taking, in the case of Bertolini, Machiels and Homerson, a 2nd successive win. And it goes to show what a well-driven Pro-Am class car can do. And as Mike Jordan was saying when he was joining us in commentary last night, there are some very pros within the Pro-Am class. And of course Bertolini, as an example, would certainly be the match of anybody in the Pro Cup. And the Pro-Am class these days hugely competitive, and there are moves next year to try and encourage a few more of the amateur drivers into the Gentleman Trophy as well, because Pro-Am is getting rather crowded, and the Pro Cup not quite as numerous, nor is the Gentleman Trophy. Pro-Am is probably the hardest one to win at the moment, but the gentleman racers that are in Pro-Am struggling to match the speed of the professional drivers. That's great if they're in your car with you, but not if you're trying to play the catch-up game against them. So for next season, maybe the Pro-Am Cup and the Gentleman Trophy will look rather different. But for now, it is 2 pros and 2 AMs, very definitely. Andrea Bertolini and Alessandro Pierguidi, who are the pro drivers that celebrate the win. For the Haribo Racing Porsche team, Uwe Alts and Christian Menzel, the pros. Hans-Guido Riegel, Mike Stursberg, the amateur drivers. And for 3rd in the class, Olivier Panis, Fabien Barthez, Eric Debar and Morgan Moulin-Trafford receiving their trophies now as well. The Ferrari that wins the class in the end, 7 laps down on the race-winning car, but certainly no disgrace. And the time lost in part because of the amount of time in the race that the AMs have to drive for and their lap time, rather than anything wrong with the car particularly. The champagne is sprayed and the drivers leg it from the podium somewhere drier and safer, and then to the press conference. I think there were some more photographs to be taken before the winning drivers from the Gentleman Trophy make their way out onto the podium. And a quick word about the winning car in the Cup class as well, because Kevin Balthazar headed the driving force of the speed lover Porsche, along with Christophe Bijori, Ralf Vlergels and Rick Renmans, whose participation was something of a question mark pre-race, but Rick Renmans was in the car and comes home to win the class, to survive in the class indeed. So we've had a really mixed race in terms of the weather, in terms of how different cars have been strong and weak at different times, and another fascinating race, that's for sure. Now the sun is shining and weary drivers, weary teams think about packing up and heading for home, some of whom will have another race to do next week in a different championship. There's a British GT round, for example, next week. Many of the teams will be involved in that. Some of the teams will be involved in that. And there you can see the drivers from the Gentleman Trophy class heading onto the podium, with Philippe Marie, Robert Hissam, Pierre Hershey, Jérôme Demey already on the podium. Second, Gilles Vannelet, Gaël de Soudier, Christian Decoulteau and Pierre Fontaine onto the podium. And the winners, Steve Van Bellingham, Bert Renault, Armand Frumal and Johan van Loo. There's the first racing Porsche team. Great effort that. And the local heroes, really, taking the class victory. First Motorsport, run by Joe Lammers, is the team that takes the win. Gilles Vannelet with his flag there, celebrating second in class. And the driver's keen, I think, already to get the champagne sprayed rather than receive any trophies. And the results of the race confirm, as they've just been presented, that exactly half the field finished. 66 started, 33 finished, with the last place car being the Audi of Jan Brunstedt, Michael Bender and Jocke Mangs. So half the field didn't get there, half the field did. Not bad considering the conditions and the ferocity of the racing that we had, not just up front but across all the classes. Some very, very fierce racing indeed over the last 24 hours. So the drivers, some I think were trying to leave the podium, ushered back, because surely there are trophies to go for them. Yes, there are. And then the Cup class winners will head their way onto the podium as well. Out they come now. Kevin Balthazar, Christophe Boucherie, Ralf Lurgels and Britt Redmonds as the winners of the Cup class. And the trophies to be presented now to all the drivers. It's a shame that we didn't have more in the Cup class. There's Maxi Jazz taking photographs. I think you should race in this next year, Maxi. He knows about racing Porsches, that's for sure. And although not as fast a Porsche as a Pucker GT3 spec car, the Carrera Cup specification Porsche, it's certainly not a slow car. And although Maxi's not raced for a year or two, it would be good to have him on the grid, not just performing at next year's Spa 24 Hours. So trophies given to the winners then of the Gentleman Trophy class. The car finishing in 17th place overall, which is perhaps more meritorious than actually winning the class for a Gentleman Trophy car to be that far up the order. Yeah, absolutely excellent. Just looking at others that had dramas during the course of the race. The number 89 Aston Martin that we saw lose a wheel and stop out onto the circuit with electrical problems early on in the race, finished in 16th place. That was a great recovery as well. And the Viper, Gilles Vannelay's car, second in class, finished in 22nd, and it was 23rd where the Philippe Marie, Robert Hisson, Pierre Hershey, Jérôme Deme, Santilok Audi that made it home. Even some of those cars that were counted as retirements still classified, such as, for example, number 51, the Giuseppe Ciro, Gaetano Ardagna, Dan Brown, Tony Villander, Ferrari, because it had done enough distance to be classified, so it gets in the results coming home in 26th. Well, trophies then presented to the Gentleman Trophy drivers, and in a moment to the Cup class winner as well, at the end of the 64th Spa 24 Hours. It has been, as ever, a lively and busy race. An awful lot has happened, an awful lot to look back on. And, of course, for the teams, there is the remaining 2 rounds of the championship to look forward to. Nürburgring and Navarra-Bakken. And as far as the winning drivers are concerned, there's champagne to be sprayed, and then the drivers now do make their way off the podium. Well, as I say, it's been a very busy 24 hours. So let's have a look back at some of the highlights of what has been a great race, because it all started in the sunshine, it ended in the sunshine, a lot happened in between. This was how it all kicked off yesterday, with the BMWs going head-to-head off the grid. Frank Kekler versus Maxime Martin as they swooped through Eau Rouge for the first time. And it was Maxime Martin who came out ahead as the cars powered up towards Les Combes for the first time. Kekler ran second, Alvaro Perret was third. And this multi-million euro traffic jam headed uphill for the first time. André Lotterer busy in traffic as he tried to work his way past cars at the hairpin at La Source. He was on the tail of Bernd Schneider as Uwe Alsen got himself onto the rear of the Lamborghini driven by Peter Cox. And the two of them ran nose to tail down towards the bus stop. Matt Griffin's brand new Ferrari, complete with broken bonnet catch, battled on but losing time in a straight line because of the lack of speed it had, while Xavier Marson put a move on Olivier Pla and picked off another place, making his way up towards Les Combes. Frank Kekler was doing his best to stay in touch with the race leader, but he couldn't quite do it as the gap started to widen, and Koen Wouters was given a shove. That put him off the road. Adam Christodoulou, though, was the first major talking point as he made this dive for the pit lane, misjudged it, glanced off André Lotterer and hit the Armco. It did a lot of damage to the suspension of the McLaren. It also did lots of damage to the suspension of the Audi. Eventually the McLaren, although it rejoined, would crash out. Christodoulou, though, excluded as a driver from the race. Frank Kekler had drama ahead of him as he turned his way into the bus stop as the Lorenz Frey-driven Jaguar was tipped into a spin, and Uwe Alton, carving his way through traffic, made his move to get past the ARC Bratislava Porsche and Edward Sandstrom's Audi on the inside, going in towards Les Combes. The GT3 Racing Audi got turned into a spin. That was down at the right-hander of Bruxelles, Peter Belshaw being turned around. And some brave driving was going on as the battle between Sandstrom, Lemeray and Stifler took up attention. Frank Stifler eventually being able to work a way past with a really opportunistic move, gaining 2 places on the run up the hill going into Les Combes. The McLarens of Eric van der Poel and Alvaro Parent very nearly fell out as they tripped over themselves going through Les Combes, but the overtake happened when the cars got down to the pit path. Parent moving ahead of the winningest driver in the Spa 24. Oil out of the back of the 33 Porsche was on the road. Flames from the back of the Porsche meant it headed for the pit lane. Van der Poel and Cox were caught out by the slippery track. They spun as down the pit lane came Eric Dermont for the flames to be extinguished. When the rain came, it was really heavy and it caught out many a driver, including Julian Draper. His McLaren aquaplaned off the road, so too did the similar car of Phil Quaife. The yellow flags came out, the safety car came out. Its first of 15 appearances during the course of the race. There was so much standing water on the track, the Audi mechanics were thinking it was time to go swimming. Eventually, though, the conditions did indeed relent just a little, and the race was back underway. Up front, it was developing into a fight for leadership between the Audi of number 1, the Team WRT entry, the Maxime Martin-driven BMW, and the number 16 René Rast-driven Audi. The BMW was ahead, but under pressure from the 2 Audis, and Rast was closing the gap to the pair. As the leading Mark VDS BMW made its pit stop, number 1 was getting closer, but with points awarded at the 6-hour mark, it was important that Marcus Paltelot, with a stop-go penalty hanging over him, was kept out of the car. At the 6-hour mark, this was the leading car, and maximum points at the 6-hour point of the race went the way of the BMW. Philippe Salini had this huge accident coming out of Blanchimont, the weather conditions catching him out. The Porsche destroyed the driver okay. And then in the darkness, Christopher Hasse made this move for the race lead and worked his way through up on the inside coming through the bus stop. With the rain falling again, the safety car was deployed once more. Everybody paddled their way around the circuit, tiptoeing through the puddles. But eventually the race would get back underway, and for the drivers it was an even bigger challenge than before, because this time around they didn't just have the standing water to worry about, there was some spray, but also a lack of light, a lack of visibility caused by that as well. The fireworks that were lit would help a little bit, but for the drivers it was still going to be a big problem, and the 1 or 2 who were really lucky in traffic with such a big entry of 66 cars, it was not going to be easy to work your way through. Frank Kekler, for example, glancing off the United Autosports Audi. He got away with it. Maxime Martin was lucky as well in the BMW not to come a cropper against the McLaren in the hands of Mike Wainwright, who misjudged where Poran was and turned across the front of the BMW and had a spin as a consequence. The 2 McLarens contrived to drive into each other. Klaus Hummel up the inside of Nico Verdonk. It was a big impact. It put both of them out of the race, and it took Verdonk out of the Pro-Am class lead. He was absolutely livid. Not surprisingly, as the number 16 Audi started to work its way into the mix for the race lead. And as the race wore on, it was getting closer and closer to the front, joining the number 3 BMW and the number 1 Team WRT Audi within that leading group. The concert in full swing attracted the attention of the fans, and at 4:37 in the morning, Marcus Paltelot had his stop-go penalty to serve. It was followed by a puncture. Also, the car was hit from behind and suffered some rear damage. Andrea Piccini at 9:10 this morning also had a problem. He was leading, he had a puncture. The car headed for the pit lane, and it seemed as though maybe 16 was infallible after all. Number 1 picked up the race lead, but it too would have problems. A wheel was shed by the 89 Aston Martin. 74 Porsche bounced off it, the wheel in turn clobbering the concrete. Hans-Guido Riegel was busy at the wheel of his Porsche. Big sideways moment coming into the bus stop, but he was able to power his way out again, as trouble for the number 3 BMW meant that they couldn't restart the car easily after pit stops. And then a wheel came loose on the 71 Ferrari, and Daniel Zampieri ploughed off the road. The car came to a halt. The wheel eventually rejoined the whole ensemble, as down in the pit lane the Lamborghini was having problems and electrical drama, meaning that it was struggling with the gear shift. Tom Christensen got rid of his rather now futile, loose interior mirror, just used the door mirror and carried on, battling his way into 6th place. That was under the safety car. When that pulled off, the race was back underway, and the leader was held up in traffic. Audi number 1 being given a hard time by the charging Frank Stippler. He was right on his tail as the cars worked their way up towards Les Combes. 16 led the way, and Christopher Hasse had this moment under braking for Les Combes. He scooped it all up again and was able to press on, try to reduce that deficit to the leading car, and this was how it looked on board. Hasse off the road, over the curb, back on again. But Stippler was building the lead despite this big sideways moment as he really pushed hard. Maxime Martin unlapped himself from Frank Stippler, but wasn't terribly pleased with the way that he'd been held up by the leader. Why didn't you let me unlap myself, was the question from Maxime Martin. A spin for Jan Brunstedt put his Audi backwards off the road, and the Mark VDS team was awoken from its slumbers by the arrival of the cameras. Twan Hesemans concentrating on how his son's car was doing. 15th in the end was the answer. A spin for Christopher Mies coming out of the bus stop, and as he rejoined, he went a lap down to number 16. Then number 2 ended up in its garage. There was an issue with the seat belts, and 2 laps later, Edward Sandstrom had even bigger problems as he clipped the curb and lost control of the car. It was a mighty impact into the tyres. The car was going no further. Sandstrom was okay, the car out of the race on the spot, and yet again, the safety car was deployed. Everybody formed up behind the safety car. The track was cleared, and the leading Audi had a pad change and went back into the race. But even though the pad change was done in double quick time, it was then held at a red light and lost ground once again to the number 1 Audi. He overtook the car back on track though, as Stippler and Hasse continued to trade the lead. 52 was on target for the Pro-Am class honours, and running strongly in 3rd place was the number 66 Vita 4-1 BMW. The lead battle was as intense as ever, as Stippler made his move up on the inside, diving down to the bus stop, and that put him once again back in front. Then Lorenzo Bontempelli had this enormous accident coming out of Blancpain, the car hitting the tyres and rolling. He was okay, but it brought out the safety car for the 16th time, and therefore the leader served its last pit stop. Stefan Ortelli had a last-minute decision to pit, having turned his way through the bus stop. Oh no, I don't. Swing right and come in. He crossed the white line, however, that you're not meant to do, and a drive-through penalty went his way, and that meant that the car fell away, lost a lap to the race leader. Maxi Jans was enjoying the last part of the race. Mark Hayek wasn't, as his smoky Lamborghini was starting to wilt. But for AF Corsa, the number 52 Ferrari was looking good for a class win. First Motorsports Porsche was looking good for victory within the Gentleman Trophy, and at the checkered flag, the Audi formation finish came through with Frank Stippler, Andrea Piccini and René Rast, Audi R8 LMS Ultra, winning the Spa 24 Hours. Second place to the Audi of Stefan Ortelli, Christopher Mies and Christopher Hasse, with 3rd to Frank Kekler, Greg Franchi and Matthias Lauda. And there were tales of woe and hardship and struggle and endeavour right the way to the checkered flag. The 64th running of the total 24 Hours of Spa has been another enthralling race. From David Addison and from Hayley Coxon at Spa, for now, it's goodbye.